So here we are on turn 100, and the invasion has begun, right? So we're getting to work on that. At the end of this turn, we actually had a like kind of a weird battle. So there were two actually armies. Malekith's army. I don't know if it'll show. Yeah, it doesn't really show. Like Malekith attacked us, and then this other person. A couple armies tried to sneak around to Slaver's Point. I had Alarielle in ambush. Actually, I put Alarielle and Tyrion both in ambush. Both of them were detected. The ambushes failed, or something along those lines. I'm not quite sure. It's hard to tell over the end turn. Obviously, Alarielle's ambush was foiled. It looks like Tyrion's wasn't, but it still didn't get triggered or something, or maybe they were somehow we got into a 2v2. These armies versus theirs, and frankly, I was going to play it out, but it was better to just auto-resolve it. I didn't take that much losses, and since it was over my end turn, you can see I've already partially recovered. Like, we were down to maybe a third health on most of these units, or half health. They're already back up to 2/3 and will be fully replenished by the end of the next turn. So, it doesn't... I don't... I do have to sit here for a turn, but I wiped out 2 entire armies. In fact, I really would like to take a look. Yeah, I mean, these, at the end of last turn, they were pretty much on par with me. But we keep wiping out full armies. And realistically, that's what you need in order to gain some momentum, right? Like, I took these 2 cities, but these are just a staging grounds, right? It's not, the important thing is not that I'm taking cities away from them, at least not early on in the fight, right? Maybe a little bit of diversionary, like sacking and besieging, like, going and wiping out territory can definitely hurt your enemy. But the biggest thing is taking out these big armies. Even if it doesn't take them that long to recruit, that's how you shift the momentum in your favor. I killed Malice Darkblade out here at sea with this army, which I'm going to have to try to upgrade a little bit because, frankly, they are quite weak. In fact, we'll take a look at that in a little bit. But so just, I repelled the attack by Malekith. I was able to get into a fight with him with, where did he go? With Alistar. And I'd actually probably like to review that fight as well. That was a good fight to review. We had a couple we might take a look at here. But really, what you would see in those fights is pretty much what you've been seeing all along, right? I might take a look at the Malice Darkblade fight as well, because it shows a little bit of ability prioritization, right? Being able to use your spells on the right characters at the right time. Basically, in that scenario, it was to pin down Malice using my Archmage of Light. Being able to use that Net of Amantok to pin him in place, selecting a few archer groups, having them focus fire on him, and cutting him down really quickly. It's just the little things that can turn your advantage in a fight. But besides that, frankly, there were a lot of battles, but they're all gonna look the same at this point in time. If you're still struggling with the battles, maybe review some of the older ones. If I can get some really good, like 2v2, like 40 units aside battles, those might be good to review. But even here with Alarielle and Tyrion, I was better off just auto-resolving it. I didn't really take that bad of losses, and even if I had done it on my own turn, I still could have healed up almost to full, if not entirely to full. And again, even with the AI and the bonuses that they get, that's 2 full-size armies wiped out, right? Instead of going and taking this one city, which I could have done, now I am going to be, like, next turn I'm going to be able to launch an attack on Karen Carr with Tyrion, probably just auto-resolve it, because it's going to be easy to wipe out. I can start pushing west with Alarielle, take the Blacklight Tower, and then this province will be mine, right? And then we can go a little further, then we can start, like, pushing into the mainland. I also do have this third army that's ready to come in, and I'll have to come back to that and think about where I want to go with it, because I've got this army, and I also actually want to get a couple more units in this army. I don't have the hero capacity to put mages in there yet. Yeah, I still don't. I got to get some more of these provinces up to tier 5, or even to tier 4, and build the mages building, but I have not been doing that. I've been slacking on that, so you can see, like, that's right here, 4 turns. So we'll get there. We'll get there soon, and we'll be able to get some more nobles too. But so anyway, this army's lacking heroes. we're just going to position it real quick because I know that I want to just grab one more Lothern Sea Guard for it, and then I can put the heroes in. But you can also see, I talked about this before, but this is what most of my army compositions look like. At this point, it's pretty consistent. 2 archers with light armor, 2 Eagle Claw bolt throwers, a couple of dragons, 6 Lothern Sea Guard, 4 Phoenix Guard, the Lord, and all 3 heroes, like one of each type, right? It's not consistent in all of the armies that currently exist. Like this army, I really, if I'm recruiting these, I should really get rid of these as well. I'm waiting to get room for the heroes, right? Because I'm missing heroes from this army. In fact, I know that I don't want these Flamespire Phoenixes long term. What I want is probably some dragons. But I'm not going to recruit dragons right away, so I don't want to take out... I'm just going to take out one of them so I can replace it with 4 Phoenix Guard. I know global recruitment, not my favorite thing either, but I don't plan on moving this army. So we've got a couple different armies spread around, right? Again, we had a couple fights down here at Val's Anvil. They keep trying to send armies past, but I actually don't think that this area is going to be threatened significantly anymore. Lately they've been focusing their attacks on Tor Anrock, and really, like, every army either comes down to Tor Anrock. Well, one tried to run past, but it's either that or they're trying to deal with this invasion, right? And that's what I was talking about, being able to attack your enemy to pull the attention off of your own island. Again, even if all I do is dance around in here with Alariel and Tyrion and just keep fighting off their armies, it's much easier to do it here where I have control of like a little bit better of control of territory. I'm not quite so spread out. Whereas over here, you know, I'm probably going to leave Alistar up here in the north to kind of defend this province and float around in here. Maybe move back to the south as need be if they try to run past on the ocean. I've got an army here to defend this western coast, and then I've got an army here to defend the southwest. But I don't anticipate a lot of attacks here in the southwest. In fact, I could even send this army out fishing. Even here, I actually really should just wipe that thing out, but I also kind of don't care. That might come back to bite me. Well, we're only a turn into these. If I hadn't dismissed those troops, this would look better. But yeah, we can just go and give them the smackdown real quick. I don't know what they were thinking there. Maybe they thought I would stick to recruiting. Like I said, there was really no reason not to go and take those out real quick. Puts me 1 turn behind on my recruitment, but eliminates 1 more potential threat, right? And just puts them further behind. So yeah, besides that, nothing really special to talk about, right? Like I said, on this part of the campaign, I'm kind of shifting into the end game. The most interesting things to talk about are going to be, you know, potential defenses from their invasion or their attempts to invade my territory, and my attempt to invade their territory. But otherwise, most of the things are going to look the same, right? At this point, my army compositions are pretty stable. You know, Alistar's army looks like this. Gilgalion's got a weird army. Rana is going to have the same army as everybody else. So does this person, Caladriel, right? Even this person over here, Valen, has a similar army. Maybe I should get rid of those Phoenix. But this guy's just kind of here to bounce the Chaos troops. I don't care too much what happens to him or how good the quality of his army is. But so you can see I've got on the east side an army apiece to intercept whatever comes this way. Altharion still needs a noble. Maybe I should even just steal that noble from this guy for now. Well, yeah, actually, that would make sense. And we're coming up on the 3rd ritual, so Altharion's going to need it before this guy really does. I'm not super committed to this army surviving for an eternity, right? But again, there's... You know, we had a battle with Malice out here. We had a battle with Malekith down here. I want to... Well, there's been other armies running around. Yeah, Crone Hellebron. I don't even remember where she went. I think we caught her out at sea. Or no, Crone Hellebron landed. I had this army in ambush stance, and she just walked right into it, and we auto-resolved it. It was completely one-sided, right? Like, just having a few people in place. Like, I want to send this army and this army to help support the invasion. I'm really not too sure if I'm going to try to sweep through the southern part yet, or if I'm going to try to do more on the north. I'll probably end up leaving one army behind here in the north to kind of cover, like take Blacklight Tower and just lock down this little area here. Maybe get this noble back up to the north scouting. I really still wish that I could have that mage, have a mage here doing that. When we can we reach that? It doesn't, it looks like it. Let's try it. Get some more just visibility and scouting information. You can see I ended up actually putting a bunch of points into Assassinate so I can take out heroes while I'm here as well. So he'll probably just remain a forward scout. Because, you know, if they really wanted to, they could take an army and scoot out from either of these naval cities, because they're not going to suffer that same attrition. Yeah, they shouldn't suffer the same attrition. I don't believe Nagarond will. And so they can just kind of scoot out from there and potentially attack me. I mean, that's what Alistar's sitting here for anyway. So I don't think that's too threatening, right? But so, yeah. I mean, like I said, I've got these two armies sitting here to recover. Most of these armies are not moving, right? Like, this army's recruiting. I wish I could get it some heroes, and maybe I'll just have it loiter until I can get those heroes recruited. These armies over here are loitering, waiting to intercept the next ritual army that appears. Again, same thing here, like these western armies just loitering. So I've got two on the invasion track. Gilgallion, actually, I can get him in here now. And I want to be careful, because I don't see anything up here, but there's still a little bit of fog, so it's possible that I walk him right into some kind of scary battle. But it looks okay. Okay, so he should be clear. You kind of want to be careful, because that happened with Crone Hellebron, where she was parked out here. I was going to move an army out to attack her because I could reach, but there was actually a black arc with about half an army in reinforcement range, but that definitely would have turned the tide for them, right? So you don't want to dive on stuff like that if you can help it. You still want to be careful, even at this stage of the game. I don't want to throw away any of my armies. I want to maintain my power and my advantage over everyone, right? I mean, you can see the Cult of Pleasure. Honestly, they're too focused down here fighting the Lizardmen, and they've been kind of trading back and forth. Hopefully we'll gain some momentum on them. The real problem is the Lizardmen are about to lose some of their stuff due to this ritual that they triggered. Smart. I was going to say, I also want to review diplomacy, because at this stage, people just keep like losing and retaking and losing again their coastal cities. So you have to keep checking, like the last defenders, just a few turns ago, lost this coastal city to the Skaven, and that just somehow disables their entire ability to trade, even though, you know, well, because this cuts us off from their capital. It's super annoying. It happens all the time when you're trade partners with Kralkar. He has all this territory. I don't know how he doesn't have things figured out. You know what? If I could just confederate Imric, that would be sick, actually. Because I was just going to say, I'm looking at this. I've discovered Imric now. He is at war with the last defenders, and they're just all wasting their time over there. Whereas if I can just confederate him real quick, we can stop that war. The last defenders can get their stuff together and hopefully eliminate the Skaven. Like, I know that I'm not going to be able to be friends with them forever, but right now it's a great trade partner, great source of income. I could truly care less what happens to any of this stuff. Like, we'll have to review that in a bit. But so, yeah, point being, like, that's just one less obstacle for Khemri to deal with, one less obstacle for the last defenders. I don't really care if the two of them fight each other, and I mostly don't care what happens to this entire continent, right? I'm just happy to have just interrupted all the nonsense that was going on down there. We might have even gathered some heroes from there, though quite frankly, I don't really want to putz around with that, like level 7, level 8. I mean, like, the only thing I'm really going to try to do is turn this into a defensive place so I can potentially recruit some, like, make this capable of recruiting heroes, right? I would want to, like, we've got that mage, so just this confederation should actually have given me what I need. But I like this whole thing. I don't I don't really want any of this. I don't know what they have. I could look, but... Oh, and I can't dismiss Imric. That's right. That's so dumb. Yeah, I truly, truly do not care about that territory. So I'll have to run him way out, which is kind of annoying. Ooh, this is probably the fire mage he started with. Oh, I feel bad deleting a level 12 hero. Look away. But so yeah, we're just gonna clean this stuff up, because then I can actually grab those heroes. Wait, I should be able to just do the whole thing. Yeah. Because, yeah, I, again, truly don't care about this territory. I only did this to just make him stop fighting the last defenders. Like, stop fighting each other. Just get to work. Skaven have nothing. This guy has nothing left. Hello, Quick Cut Taker? Like, look at this. 3 settlements. No military strength. Somehow he keeps interrupting my flipping trade agreement with Krokgar. You need to get your act together, bud. So, hopefully that will prevent us from losing that trade agreement. Again, same thing with the Tomb Kings. I didn't even know if they were at war with Imric. I don't care. Now they don't have to be, or they can't be. And they can just focus on cleaning up this frickin' rabble. But yeah, like, this is... Look at that. That's a pretty solid trade agreement. Like, being able to restore those is nice. Yeah, you kind of have to deal with some of that nonsense once you get to this stage. And just some of these, like, again, Khemri, if he doesn't have this specific port and, like, this territory, which he tends to lose a lot while these northern Bretonnian factions are still alive, then you can't trade with him. It's super annoying. Again, same thing with Krokgar. We talked about that. So we got the trade stuff set up. Okay, so what I want to do next here, I want to let these replenish. I mean, I already talked about this too, right? Tyrion can take Karendkar. We'll open a path for Gilgallion to enter. Honestly, I'm probably actually going to have Gilgallion run up here and try to, like... I might have him try to take this settlement. It would be nice to unseat this. It'd be nice to open up a passageway into there. I might just have him do that just kind of to make another distraction, right? Give us yet another front to fight them on. And if I can kind of take this territory and block off Frozen City, Dark, if I can, like, really block off all of this. I don't know if it's really necessary, but again, these are, like, all totally undefended. Military presence of 4, so he does have an army somewhere in there. There's a 16 stack somewhere in that province. So yeah, it would just be nice to have the visibility, right? Have the visibility, have the defense. I really would like to focus on pushing down into the coast here, though, just because this is all going to be frozen region attrition. And I know that there's like a Val's Anvil somewhere in here that I can take for more Waystone fragments. And just, again, being able to kind of seal things up down here, too, right? Like, if I have this whole coast, which is a lot, that's a big ask, and maybe I'd be better off up here. But if I can take this whole, like, if I can take this province and this province, then I don't really need to worry. Like, I would pull this army back to the center to help defend during the ritual. I'd have these 2 armies out here for the ritual. I'm going to have to hope, and I'm going to have to hope that we'll see where things appear for the 4th and 5th ritual. I'm kind of concerned that some of the Skaven... Oops, spoiler alert, by the way, if you've never gotten that far. There's going to be Skaven in the later rituals. They're... I'm just not sure if... I'm not convinced that they're going to spawn on the east side. I'm concerned they're going to spawn in here. So I might try to reroute some of these armies. But essentially, if I can clean up this coast, it should at least free up one of these armies to rotate out somewhere and be a little more useful. Or at least not be concerned about raids, right? Yeah, exactly. Because I'm looking at it here, it's like, well, I can pull this army in, but then who's going to protect Avalorn, right? Well, Alistar would pull in and protect Avalorn. Who's going to protect my west coast? Because I don't actually have defenses on these. But I would still have Driel in here on the west coast to be able to, like, at least try to intercept and or delay whatever might happen. And you know what? If we lose some of these cities, like, it's really... It's going to annoy me, but it's not really a big deal if we've already taken, 3-4 provinces over here. Then who cares, right? So that's kind of the game plan. That's a little bit more big picture stuff, I suppose. But that's kind of what we're looking at here. We're going to go through builds real quick. I'm building a trade building in here because I'm just confident enough. Let's see what... Yeah, there's not even anything else to build. All the rest of these are going pretty standard, right? And I talked about that previously. We haven't really made enough progress to talk about most of this, right? On the West Coast here, I kind of want to be recruitment capable, but first we got to build it up. Tor Ilir, this is pretty much wrapped up. So at least... Ooh, and I can switch this. This place is in good shape, right? And I actually used that to recruit, just the bolt throwers for this guy as he was passing through. I didn't recruit any silver helms. Weird. Who could have guessed that? But I did recruit, like, dragons and some Lothern Sea Guards from this province for them, right? And in fact, as much as I want to grab heroes from there, we do have a Tier 5 mages building here. Yeah, so we'll recruit a mage and a lore master of Hoth because I can stick that in this army. I still need a noble for this army and a noble for this army. And I don't want to go through every build to just... I know that I've got a couple in the works, so it shouldn't be too long before I can get those nobles built. Yeah, I'll double check. I don't think that there's really anything important to talk about. Yeah, Trace, again... this probably isn't really worth it. Yeah, I'm not going to have any of those units for the upkeep reduction, but 20 exotic animals, that's also probably not worth it. This is just one of those things I build because it exists, and it's pointless to build, so don't build it. We're making this instead. I don't think that I need the stone walls, frankly. Yeah, and this way instead I can get more economy. Okay, let's look and compare. Yeah, this gives me 48 exotic animals. I really can't justify that unique building for Shrace. It's thematic, and I really struggle when it comes to thematic stuff. I just can't help myself, but I'm not going to do it. Here in Tor Yvres, again, like Economic Bastion. Here down in Sartosa, we are going to build the Smithies Tavern, because that's a good amount of money and public order, so I might even be able to remove this building. But you can see I can fit the Mages building in here and something else once I delete the Growth building. Ilasilai, I got this Enchanted Walls, and ooh, there we go. There's my Elven Court about to finish up. So next turn I'll be able to pull a Noble, and I want to stick it in this army so I can get him moving to the Warfront sooner. Calidor, nothing changed. Tor Anrock, like, nothing has really changed here. We're just kind of fleshing out all of these. We're close to getting it to, buying the Tier 4 upgrade. But yeah, so there's obviously there's not a ton to talk about with the builds, and I think that really covers everything, right? I will glance at research. You can see we finished up the Lord recruit rank and Hero recruit rank for Nobles research. That's kind of nice. I also grabbed the marble stockpiles and extravagant murals. I got these constructions done. Oh wow! And my research rate is finally at a point where all of these take one turn, which is amazing. Wow. Okay. Well, and so I'm grabbing this, right? Because this is a really short research to get myself 5% upkeep on dragons reduced. And then next we are finally definitely going to get this Lore Masters of Hoth and Mages research. But then we're probably just going to move into here, right? I kind of missed the mark for these for the current round of armies that I built. But that just means that I should get these and it'll work for my next round of armies that I build. Though... it would also be smart to kind of get some of these research done now that I have Dragon's Phoenix. Where's the Phoenix Guard upgrades? Are they back here, or do we already have them? Are there really not? Dragon Princes, recruit rank... ward save and melee defense for Phoenix Guard. Okay, so this one would be nice, but that's kind of for later. Yeah, and I guess really all we have otherwise is the Lothern Sea Guards and the Archers and the Dragons. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely focus on these recruit rank options first. So that'll cover... I think that covers everything. You can see I still actually haven't worked on this as well. I'm gonna grab these. And then I'm going to grab the recruit rank because these will be quick to get and that'll help progress everything a little bit faster. Just because I already did the recruitment, we missed that cycle, so I can get a couple of other research things done before the next recruitment cycle happens. So that should pretty much do everything, okay? That should cover everything, I believe, here. We're going to look at just a couple of those battles. Like I said, I want to showcase the one fight with Malekith, because those are a couple of big tier 5 armies clashing, right? I also want to show that fight against Malice Darkblade, a little bit of ability usage, but frankly, if you've seen one fight with the High Elves, you've seen them all, right? There were a couple other battles that I did save and I could show, but honestly, I'm not going to, because it boils down to this, okay? Target prioritization and spell usage, right? In any army I have a Celestial Mage in, I really like these for the High Elves, the Heavens Mage, because of the, Curse in the Midnight Ward. Reduces their armor, right? You drop this on an enemy army as it's moving in range of your archers, and all of a sudden your archers' damage goes way, way up, right? You don't need the armor piercing if they don't have the armor, so you can shred them to bits that way. If you have a Light Mage, I don't think that... Oh, she does. If you have a Light Mage, you drop the Net of Amontok, either single cast on the Lord or overcast on a group, and again, your archers will just shred whatever is there because it's not moving, right? It has no chance to dodge stuff. So those are really the two lores of magic that I use most frequently for the High Elves. If you put in on a lot of dragons, maybe you could use the Lore of Life. The Lore of Fire obviously is very good, has a lot of high damaging spells, and is really good for sieges, right? But besides that, those are kind of the options that I go with for the playstyle that I have here. So we've got those kind of going on. Yeah, and like I said, I could show these fights, but it's really the same thing, right? It's the same thing, but with better units. I put Phoenix Guard in the front. I put the Lothern Sea Guards in the middle and have them shoot arrows at things. I try to catch enemies on the flank with some of my archers if I need to or if I can. Otherwise, either send the dragons out to the flanks, or if they have artillery, send the dragons out to attack their artillery and help your bolt throwers disable their artillery. In fact, a lot of the times it means your bolt throwers can then focus on their archers instead, because you can just take out their artillery pretty easily with your dragons, unless they dedicate a significant amount of forces to stopping you, which obviously that's kind of nice as well, right? That's in your benefit. Other than that, like I said, the fights look the same. These Dark Elves are starting to bring higher quality troops, but it's just about focus firing them with like your bolt throwers, like the Harganeth Executioners or Blackguard of Nagarond, hitting them with your bolt throwers, right? Making sure that they're selected when you use your magic spells on them, right? But essentially you just let them hit your line and let the Phoenix Guard duke it out and let your Lothern Sea Guards cut them to pieces. Making sure to kind of get your heroes in, do your spell casting, and especially it depends on if they have a lot or a little artillery, right? I even fought like a Skaven group where the focus was more on artillery with the dragons, so that's kind of what the dragons are for. That's your utility unit, right? In these Dark Elf fights, most of the time I leave my dragons by the front lines, because when my Phoenix Guard get overwhelmed by 2 or 3 units of their melee infantry, I hit it with a Dragon Breath, and all of a sudden the tide just shifts right back into my favor, right? The Lothern Sea Guards can take some damage if they have too many melee troops and you kind of get surrounded. But again, usually with good spell management and with your archers, you'll be able to mount comebacks. If you're facing down a lot of monstrous units, like if they bring Hydras to the battle, which they absolutely will, right? You just focus fire them. You just select 3 to 5 of your archer units and have them shoot 1 Hydra at a time. And those Hydras will... Especially if you delete 1 or 2 before they even hit your lines, right? Even if 3 Hydras hit your infantry lines, if you have 10 to 12 archers, like only 75, like you still have 75% of your archers left, and if they all just focus fire down 1 Hydra at a time, you'll free up your archers pretty quickly. In a way, the biggest threat you have is cavalry, just because the AI will work really, really hard to flank your bolt throwers with their cavalry. It should give your archers lots of time to shoot them. Sometimes you'll have to reposition either a dragon or a phoenix or a Lothern Sea Guard behind your artillery in order to protect them. But to be honest, like by the time that their cavalry end up launching the attack on your bolt throwers, it's almost not even worth it, right? Like, your bolt throwers have already done most of the damage that they're going to do, or have gotten, like, at that point, your archers are going to be in range of their army. Your bolt throwers aren't as necessary. I'm not saying you shouldn't protect them, but you don't want to, like, overcommit and scramble and make things look messy. And honestly, we might even see one of those here. I had a couple of fights where it's just, things can get tough. But anyway, we're going to review those two battles. Like I said, I kind of wanted to talk about battle theory in general, because I don't think that it's useful to show every single battle, because a lot of them look the same, so you're not really learning valuable lessons. I just wanted to discuss more directly what the key points and the key takeaways are from these, like, high-end, like high-value army late game fights. So with that being said, we're going to jump in and review a couple of battles here. And then I'm probably, we'll see where we're at 10 turns. But when I get to this point in these kind of guides, what I want to do is move through it more quickly, right? Again, if the battles are going to be the same, if the city structures and buildings are going to be the same, right? Like all of this new territory that I'm going to take, I might eventually make one of them a military recruitment facility, but that's unlikely. I'm mostly just going to have them all be economic bastions, one after the next after the next. Why in the world do I have this built in the what? The White Tower of Hoeth? I think I actually just built that as sort of a meme so I can global recruit these, because I don't need a mage's tower because I already have this. Anyway, slight distraction. Yeah, but point being, like, if we look at these two provinces, for example, right, here's one that's more defensive with the defensive structures. Here's one that's a little less defensive, a little bit more economy pushed to the limit. Pretty much everything I take from the Dark Elves is going to look like this by the time I'm done building it or, like, reconfiguring it, right? So there's really not too much to discuss. I think that this is pretty optimal. You can see that, like, well, my trade isn't too crazy, but if you kind of sit down and do the math, like, how much is 200 income generated compared to how much is 5% trade income generated, especially if you have a port or two in the region, this gains a lot of power, right? 5% increased income from trade, and if we go and look at trade, you'll see I'm most likely already producing enough elven trinkets. Yeah, exporting 51%. There's a limit on how useful it is to produce more and more elven trinkets. So just a little microeconomic discussion there. But point being, we're going to see a lot of these economic strongholds, or like economic city types built over here. We're going to see the same army compositions get built for pretty much every new army that I make. And hopefully, ideally, I'm going to want to be auto-resolving these fights, right? I don't want to be slogging through these high, like, tier 5 fights over and over and over again. If I just keep these two armies grouped up and do some proper ambushing and positioning, and especially scouting with a hero or two, I should be able to just auto-resolve my way through all of this. Again, talking about momentum, I mean, you can see they don't even have defensive stuff built in most of these cities. So as long as we can wipe out their armies, we'll be able to absolutely shred through them. So again, with that being said, we're going to jump into the battles. We're going to progress from there. And then we might not come back for another 20 turns. I'll see where I'm at on turn 110. I in order to get to the end of this campaign without these videos going on for an eternity, again, I've just explained how a lot of this stuff is going to be repetitive from here on out. So I kind of want to take bigger timestamps and show, like, how the campaign progresses once you hit this stage. Again, I really don't think that there's a ton to discuss, but we've talked about lots already. So let's just move on. Let's move forward. We'll get into the battles. We'll get back on turn 110 or 120. We'll see where we're at then, and we'll talk about it then. Okay, so here we have a Skaven battle that I kind of wanted to show off. This was one of those roaming naval armies, and there's not too much really special in this army. I mean, they've got warp fire throwers and poisoned wind globerdiers. Now, those are very strong units if I let them get into range, if I let them get too many free shots off, if they don't target my lord, right? They've got these gutter runner slingers with poison, which those are pretty decent. Gutter runners are pretty decent. I mean, you can see they've got stock, so they won't appear for me for quite some time. They've got the snare net ability, which I don't really see the AI use that often, but it's a very powerful tool if you are the Skaven. It's like the net of Amintok. I mean, it's a snare trap, right? But really the key points, I think, on this one, at least for me personally, are the artillery, right? The Skaven is all about their missile units and artillery, and especially an army like this that doesn't actually have the DLC missile units, it means that their artillery are really going to be their biggest strength. Now, they just have the 2 warp lightning cannons, so it's not really, like, really what... The concern is if they have plague claw catapults, right? If they have that kind of weapon that can just be devastating to your infantry. But as you can see here, they don't, and so we just do the same thing we always do, right? The bolt throwers are pretty dang good anti-artillery, and if their artillery are in range, well, you know how the rest of the story goes. So we're able to take out a couple right away, and we trigger them to move. You can see these warp lightning cannons still do pretty decent damage, but honestly not anywhere near, like nothing like what you'd be seeing if they had the plague claw catapults landing hits. I also get the dragon up here. I mean, again, this is at least my typical strategy, right? Dragon goes on the flank, like it's flying, right? It's better than cavalry because it's not going to be blocked by any of their units. It can get shot by their missile units, but it can also fly away. So it makes for decent bait. We got some really good shots on that warp lightning cannon. I finally get this dragon in the back, and there's only 1 cannon left here. Now, the downside to making a move like this is, seeing we take that one out with the dragon breath. The downside to this, I was going to say, is that then it takes your dragons away from the main fight, which can be kind of tough. But again, you know, that is as opposed to having artillery shooting at you the entire fight. I also believe that this army, yeah, we had this fight we had reinforcements from Avalorn, and so you can see this one just kind of turns out to be a joke, right? Like, I mean, we've accidentally, like, I had the bolt throwers targeted here, they couldn't get a shot, so they march forward and they get slapped by some rat ogres and stuff. I mean, they got a doom wheel, but especially with the Sisters of Avalorn, man, if the Sisters of Avalorn, like the few battles that have had them in, don't convince you to buy the DLC, like there's a reason that a lot of people consider the Doom stack for High Elves to just be Sisters of Avalorn spam, right? They're good. They actually have pretty good combat line stats, too, you can see with their melee attack and defense. But really, they're just devastating missile units. They're so good. Maybe having something to hold the line helps, but... So this battle is pretty one-sided. With some of the damage that the Skaven missile and artillery units can do, I still wanted to play it out, because otherwise I would have taken too much damage in auto-resolve. But you can see, like, this wasn't even that special of a fight, right? I probably cast, your typical debuff spell from the mage. We took out their artillery, and then that was it, right? Just good positioning put us in a place to just win that fight, hands down. So that's pretty much it for that one. With that, we'll move on to the next fight. So here we've got that battle with Malekith I was talking about. He's got that War Hydra, which is, top tier monster, some top tier infantry, and then these Dread Knights, actually, which Cold One Dread Knights, especially when wielded by the AI, are pretty dangerous, right? This is like a heavy cavalry. They're quite strong. They're also very tough to kill, right? Shielded with 120 armor. They have armor-piercing damage. They're pretty good, right? And then we have essentially, like, your Phoenix Guard and your Swords Masters of Hoeth, right? Pretty much equivalents of those. So let's just kind of play this one out. I'm not really in a great position for my missile-focused army, or a great map, I should say, with all the forests. Well, we just kind of do our typical thing. I know the Black Ark Corsairs are going to run out front. They've got decent armor, but so that just means we can shred them. At some point, hopefully, I'll switch target to the Dark Shards, but... yeah, it looks like it kind of just auto-retargeted to some of this weird stuff. Looks like I actually manually retarget a bolt thrower or two onto the War Hydra. Hopefully I'll switch to that single target bolt. Yeah, there we go. And then they get in range of my missile units here. They've actually got, so the other thing is I don't really see these units creep. Like, I see this stuff on the side. These shades have stalk, so I actually don't see them coming in, really. And then we got the Hydra with the fire attack, but fortunately that casted on the Noble, so it didn't really affect us too much. And then they kind of start getting in here. Now you'll see Malekith does a pretty decent chunk of damage here, right? So again, Malekith is like a very scary lord. Again, the Dark Elves and High Elves have a lot of similarities. I mean, kind of self-evident that they would. But Malekith and Tyrion are similar, and they're both very strong. So there's not really a whole lot to talk about. You've kind of seen most of these fights play out already. You know what they look like, right? We've got the dragons on the flank. I kept them close because they don't have artillery, so that gives me the chance to, hit people with dragon breath, especially on some of these archers, right? If you can get a line on some of their archer units and just put them out of the fight with the dragon, that's pretty nice. Otherwise, casting your fire breath right on an enemy attacking one of your heroes, it's not going to do that much damage to your hero. It's going to do devastating damage to their infantry. Now you can see this is also why I was kind of concerned with some of these, like this War Hydra, right? It's in here. It's doing pretty good damage to my Phoenix Guard. I want to say I just had Alistar kind of retreat because I saw him taking some damage. We're focusing on that Feral Manticore. We at least have a decently leveled Lore Master of Hoeth, so they're up here trying to fight this off. Like, we're trying to pull as much of their infantry as we can, buy time for our archers to deal some damage. But you can see too, like, if not for these Sea Guards and Phoenix Guard on the side, like, we got these Cold One Dread Knights coming in on the flank. They're doing pretty good damage. We also still have like these Shades and these Cold One Knights setting up a really nice flank here that I'm not ready for, right? I'm focused on taking down this War Hydra because I think that's going to be of more value. But so they're going to get a nice rear charge off on my Lothern Sea Guards. You can see it still doesn't do too much damage. I immediately route the dragon down to try and assist with that. We even have the Scourge Runner Chariot off in the background, kind of getting some decent shots off. I mean, these are going to do okay damage. And it's just free, like, it's free damage, free kills on these Phoenix Guard. I mean, this battle turns into a mess, right? You can even see here, right, with 3 cavalry units, this is why, especially as the High Elves, having a lot of artillery later on isn't really that useful, right? I've got 3 artillery pieces here, and now probably 2 of them are going to get bogged down by this single Cold One Dread Knight. We at least have this one really heavily damaged and on the run. I even kind of send my Sun Dragon out here just to try to, like, buy time for my infantry. Maybe not the best choice with what they're going up against there, but you can see, like, right, we're breaking here in the middle. These Phoenix Guard, they're losing to Malekith. They're going to run away, even with the Hydra on the retreat. And it should die. This Noble, I'm going to have to, like, pull them back in. We got the Shades on the flank that are ready to go. Overall, it's still going good, but you can see in the center it's not going good, right? This Feral Manticore has been on a rampage. It's doing a ton of damage to my mage. Like, I have to be really careful with my heroes here, right? I put Alistar back in now that he's, survived a little bit and the Hydra isn't present. And Malekith runs off here. Yeah, I mean, you can see this. I have to be quite careful with a lot of my heroes in this fight. Yeah, and like I said, I realized that would be a bad matchup for my dragon there too, so I had to take them out. Lore Master fights Malekith for, all of 20 seconds and has to retreat, hopefully getting some healing casts off here. I keep casting the debuff from my mage to try to keep their armor down, because a lot of these units have pretty high armor. I'm not even doing anything to deal with these Shades on the right side, just because I'm so, like, there's too much going on here, right? There's so much going on. Now, you'll notice I do target the Sun Dragon on Malekith, and honestly, this is not the worst matchup, right? This is a pretty decent matchup. The thing is that a Sun Dragon's going to hit hard, right? And that's what you need. If we're going to take Malekith's health down in chunks, I mean, he's got, like, look at that, 96 melee attack, 61 defense. So it's going to be hard for the dragon to hit, but it does have a huge charge bonus. So with that, it should be able to land some hits, right? It should be able to survive at least a little bit. So even cycle charging your dragons can be good. But you can see we're kind of taking Malekith down piece by piece. It was tough to kind of keep all the heroes up. It was a lot of different stuff going on. And when the Dark Elves get their little bonus, their army-wide bonus, I don't think it's going to show down here. It's really, like, even these Dark Shards that seem to be barely hanging on in terms of health. Like, when you get all their units turned back around and firing at you, it can put a lot of your stuff in danger, right? Especially these armor-piercing missiles. So it can be tough to deal with. There's so many things to try to focus down, but, like, some of these larger units are good to focus fire. I actually should have retargeted some of my archers onto their archers because they'd have better range and just to be able to take their archers down and take them out of the fight. But you can see overall it turns out okay. I mean, again, like I said, Dragon works pretty dang well on Malekith. You just watched him hit for another 200 there. Probably hit him 3 times and finished him off. We finally get the dragon in on the Shades once we get things under control here in the middle. Everybody's pretty beaten up, pretty badly bruised. But they're much worse off, and the few remaining front troops that they have fighting get put on the retreat, and that's the end of the fight. So again, I mean, this fight was chaotic, right? A lot of these fights I've come away with little to no damage. This fight, obviously, that was not the case, and this is why I wanted to put the time into upgrading Alistar's army, because this would have been a nightmare without some better troops, right? The Phoenix Guard to match their Phoenix Guard equivalents, right? I don't know if I see any. Yeah, the Black Guard, like having that. Since I'm not working with the DLC, I don't have armor-piercing missiles, and they do, right? Even this third bolt thrower, I don't think was necessarily a good idea, because they end up getting a flank off, right? If I would have had maybe a fifth Lothern Sea Guard, or like a Frost Spire, whatever, I don't know if that's the name, the Frost Phoenix, right, to sit on the defense and try to counterattack these pushes in. I mean, even my heroes, right? This Lore Master was low and could have hit regen cap in this fight. The Noble was low, Alistar is low, everybody's hurting, right? But again, a little bit of coordinated focus fire helps, right? Taking out that Hydra really early on, even though the Phoenix Guard counter the Hydra also counters Phoenix Guard, right? Anti-infantry versus anti-large. But the real fact is, because it's such a big unit, it's going to be really easy for my archers to hit it, right? That's the key, is finding targets that are going to have a higher certainty of hit with your archers. So I've said before, you shoot melee units on their way in. Once they engage with your melee units, you shoot their ranged units, right? Or maybe you shoot their flying units, or maybe you shoot their like monstrous like infantry, cavalry, whatever it may be. Like cavalry's a good target too, right? The problem is, if you're shooting at their infantry while it's fighting your own, like your melee infantry, you're going to do some friendly fire damage. If you're trying to shoot at Malekith while he's fighting a crowd of Phoenix Guard, you're mostly going to hit your own units, right? The best way to deal with a Lord like that is to use like a snare or a net of Amintok spell, something to pin them down. Otherwise, just like debuffs, single target spells, like buffs on your own. Like you try to 1v1 him and support that with buffs and debuffs and heals, right? Otherwise, I mean, or just slap him around with the Sun Dragon, right? Those are kind of your best options. So again, this fight was pretty messy. It was not perfectly executed, but we still pulled out a victory. So just kind of goes to show you, like a good enough formation, some decent unit micro. Of course, you can pause as much as you want during a combat like this and just take your time to rearrange things and make sure your units are shooting at important targets. And you can pull off a fight like this. This is probably the toughest fight I'm going to have in this campaign, save for some of the ritual armies. Besides that, these are what some of the endgame fights look like. And again, without Sisters of Avalorn in here in the core, these can get pretty tough. So, but I think that this is a good fight to showcase, right? And it also showcases why we need to have these high quality units, right? Imagine if I didn't have dragons and I still had phoenixes, right? Imagine if I didn't have Phoenix Guard and I just had some Lothern Sea Guard. Like, these guys barely survived. And this is top tier. This is a tier 5. This literally went toe to toe with their tier 5 unit and barely made it out alive. And the same is true for, like, imagine if I had more archers instead of more Lothern Sea Guards. Like, it was tough. This was a tough fight, but we pulled it off. So let's move on to the next one, and we'll kind of see what's going on with that. So this last fight is just kind of the little battle with Malekith. Again, he's got a pretty decent army put together here, right? And so this is another like close fight. To be honest, this is one that it probably rated me to lose, right? To be at a disadvantage. They only have the one set of Doomfire Warlocks, so that's not a huge deal. But they've got a few of these, like the Dark Riders. These I'm not as concerned about, but the Repeater Crossbow, like Missile Cavalry in the right hands can be pretty good, and in the AI that they are in the right hands, right? They've got a set of cavalry for each flank. They've got a set of chariots that's going to sit and snipe with that missile damage. And this is not one of my high tier armies, right? So this is going to be kind of a tougher fight. It's going to require some precision targeting, right? They've got some Dread Spears. those I can pretty much ignore, and I should ignore, right? It's going to be these Blackguard of Nagorond that are going to be the biggest threat to me throughout this battle. So let's kind of watch and see what happens. I mean, you can see they're already moving on the flank. I try to reposition a couple of my units to prepare for that, right? Just face the edge units out so they can just immediately start firing without too much micromanagement. We do a little bit of focus fire on these Dark Riders because, you know, they're gonna, I don't know, they're an okay unit, but they're weak, right? This is a unit that you can see, look at this, just a couple of archers focus firing them and they go down real fast. Now here I've already switched my bolt throwers to their ranged units, but again, you can see with all this cavalry flanking, I'm not paying enough attention, and one of my bolt throwers gets completely overridden. In fact, they go right through it and they go for the archers as well. So at this point, now my archers are bogged down. My bolt throwers are in trouble. It's kind of why I left these phoenixes back, was to help deal with this, right? Because at least we've got, you know, some Lothern Sea Guards back here. I even have, you know, my mage in back, but honestly, I'm not worried that much about my mage fighting some Dark Riders. I think that'll be okay. These spearmen even got slapped really hard by those, the Doomfire Warlocks casting that spell. You can see how devastating that Doom Bolt can be, especially on lower tier units. They're even soul blighted, like they've got the debuff going. This was some smart plays, right? This is where you kind of want to use units like this, right? Extending this noble. I know that this unit's going to be able to survive in a fight for a decent bit of time. And we've, you know, I'm trying to take out these Cold One Chariot. Well, I'm not, I don't think I'm trying to, but it's just what they're working on. We do survive the Dark Riders, though. Fortunately, Dark Riders are not that powerful of a cavalry unit. It's really these Doomfire Warlocks with that spell that can be the biggest concern. But even with that being said, you know, well, again, we've got some Blackguard here, so some of these infantry units are going to be a little bit frightening. We do have this Light Mage, which I don't have a ton of good spells on yet. It's not very high level. Here's where, now that we've kind of held off their cavalry at least a decent bit, you can see I'm doing some, like, strafing runs with my phoenixes, right? Any amount of damage that I can output onto some units like this is going to help me turn the tide, and I really need it, right? As much as I said putting this noble out here is a good idea to draw their attention, you can see it's drawn a dangerous amount of attention at this point, and especially now that their buff is activated, it's going to make things, it's a lot harder to get things to rout and retreat. Now, for some reason, the chariots charge in. I don't know if that's the best idea. I even had my bolt throwers set to the side. You can see another devastating Doom Bolt on my Spearmen, and that's why if you can completely eliminate some Doomfire Warlocks early on in the battle, you really should. We even have Malice Darkblade in here, who is dangerous, and I'm getting really concerned for my Archmage. I want to say that I had trapped him earlier. I don't think I caught it during the replay. But this is where that really comes in handy with the Archmage, right? Or with the Light Mage, is what I mean. Using the Net of Ammontok to just pin down a character like this. To make it so that Malice Darkblade just can't move and can't participate in the fight. You just stick him right in the front lines and you deal with everything else. Now it looks like we're getting the army loss penalty even with their ability active. So you can see, it turned out okay, right? They had a lot of melee infantry, not that many ranged units. We targeted down their ranged units pretty heavily to just push them out of the fight early on. And even without having we just had enough holding power, right? I had enough units that could just, like the Spearmen and Lothern Sea Guards, to just hold the line. Even with some great cavalry strafing in the back line, Dark Riders are not, that's like tier 2, tier 3 stuff, right? Like that's some low tier garbage units. So for them to move in with those, while it looks pretty scary, it's definitely survivable. Now, and even Malice is going to be on the retreat, despite the fact that he is very powerful. That, you know, it comes as a surprise to me when it happens. But I'm thankful for it, right? And so ultimately, like that's the end of this fight, right? Again, a bit messy. Some of these close fights get really messy, and especially in the late game, you know, you got to be careful because if an enemy legendary lord, especially when you're getting whatever faction if you're fighting a major faction. they're going to have several legendary lords. Those lords are going to be strong. They're going to lead strong armies and pose a pretty significant threat to you. So being able to, like I said, using that light mage to just pin him down and keep him out of the fight for small amounts of time, because he's very strong and he's got good buffs, right? But being able to just counteract, there's a lot of little pieces there, right? The Phoenixes doing a couple of bombing runs, but playing defensively first, because I knew that cavalry charge was going to ruin some things for me. Focusing down their missile units early on just to take them out of the fight, especially because Dark Elves also have very strong missile units because they have that armor piercing, right? And once those were taken care of, you could see, like, yeah, my spearmen didn't do great, right? They still got a couple of, like, cavalry charges in, the Doomfire Warlocks hitting with the Doom Bolts. But once my archers are freed up and their archers are non-existent, it's pretty easy to kind of turn the fight slowly towards your favor, or even rapidly. So those were the battles that I really wanted to show off. I think we're good to review. We're probably not going to look at as many battles later on, because I think at this point we've seen everything that's valuable to see, right? The Phoenix Guard, like that fight with Malekith, right? The Phoenix Guard, Lothern Sea Guard, Celestial Mage, like dragons and pair of bolt throwers. That's every army going forward, except for the few that I've confederated, so I can use units outside with the DLC, right? Like the Sisters of Avalorn and Alariel's army. Outside of that, those are what the fights are going to look like, right? And you could see against Malice, while it was a tough fight, that's how you want to execute that, right? I mean, we literally, or not Malice, sorry, Malekith. That's how you want to execute that. We literally went up against one of the strongest, if not the strongest, like Malekith versus Tyrion in terms of really powerful melee lords, and we beat him, right? We beat him with just Alistar, like somebody whose specialty is white lines of Shrace, and we beat Malekith with that. So it goes to show it can be done. I mean, he even brought some scary units, but we also brought some scary units, and that's really what helps you win the fights. Most of the fights are going to look the same from here on out. I will probably end up showing some of the ritual battles, as well as, just some, if there's still some interesting battles or some tougher battles, we might show them. I don't know if I really want to show the long drawn out battles, but they do occur, right? And we'll see. We'll just have to see. We'll have to move forward from here. We'll have to see what kind of fights come up. So with that, we will come back and on the next turn cycle, and we'll see where we're at there. Okay, so with everything I've got going on, especially on this turn and with the last few turns, I did think it would be prudent to stop in on this turn. That being said, it's not necessarily going to be every 10 turns, but I want to take a look at it here. Okay, so the first thing, I mean, what I want to discuss real quick are a couple of the things, like lessons learned, things that happened over the last few turns, right? So we ended up... So I'm working on this invasion over here, right? We've actually taken the Deadwood province. We've completed the Broken Lands province. It's going pretty well. I'm trying not to push too far and overextend. In fact, right now I'd really rather take a couple of fights in territory before trying to move forward again. That being said, so we've got Gilgallion here, right? Initially it was just Tyrion and Alariel. And I had Gilgallion as that third person to reinforce the armies, right? So I still had Tyrion and Alariel kind of central here, and I was going to try to send Gilgallion up north to snipe off some of these territories. When I tried that, there ended up being a full army up here. Now I kind of scouted it, and there was one of these black arcs that was within range, and I was like, well, I think a black arc with a handful of troops and, a decent army of them, I can probably outplay them. I can probably out-micro them or whatever. And the fact of the matter is the units that I had were just not, like the heroes were not high enough level to really turn the tide in that way. And this is a max level black arc from the looks of it, or at least tier 4, because it has this Bolt of Spite ability. And so honestly, it's like easy to underestimate how strong these, I mean, maybe not. Maybe I've just been underestimating how strong these black arc spells are. But especially when you play defensively and sit in a formation like me, you're not moving. You get blasted by them. And so I played the fight out a few times, and I just could not win it. I couldn't win it. So the lesson there is sometimes you do have to let a fight go. Even here on turn 110, even when I'm strength rank 1 and, the Dark Elves, they're actually coming back right now, but, we've been twice as strong as them at points once we've gotten big turnaround fights. But still, sometimes you just have to let a fight go. I was so desperate to win that fight and just start taking stuff out up here, and I knew if I retreated, I'd be fine. Or if I, went into march stance and pulled back after scouting that army, I'd be fine. And I just was being stubborn about it. So anyways, the point is, even if you have, a great army, unless you're going, again, if you're the type who's playing on Legendary and has a Doomstack army, you've got all Sisters of Avalorn and stuff like that, then you could probably pull it off. But in a situation like this, especially with this, I really don't need this many Shadow Warriors in this. That was the other part, is these really hurt me. In fact, I might as well just replace them now because I can. Or soon. I can't replace them right now because I got fights to do with these. But again, just trying to make the point. Sometimes you just got to let it go. Sometimes you need to not take fights even if you feel like you're the strongest player and you're trying to push an objective. Patience can be a key. It's better to just take a fight a turn or two later than to lose it entirely, right? So the other thing I want to look at here is the ritual, right? I've started the ritual. Now, the last time we did it, it was Lothern, the Gaian Vale, and then Tor Yvresse. We had a bunch of stuff spawn on the East Coast, okay? With the new site being Tor Ilir, it meant that stuff would spawn on the West Coast instead. And it did, and I'll admit to a little save scumming here. You can save as many times as you want on any given turn, right? And not that I would recommend abusing it, but setting up a save before, I make a save every 10 turns. I have a backup save in case I get 40 turns into a decision and it turns out horribly. Stuff like that. Anyways, and just for the sake of knowledge and information gathering, right? With everything, with the one ritual site moving from the east to the west, it also moved the ritual spawns, right? However, when I moved too many armies into this area and sat them too close to the spawn point, it ended up spawning those armies in the Gaian Vale instead. So again, another point here, they try to combat the save scumming a little bit, where if if they're going to spawn right here and you surround them with 4 armies, they're not going to spawn there. That's why you have 3 ritual sites, because they're going to spawn at whatever one is kind of the most open, right? They generally won't spawn within attacking distance of your capital. They're going to spawn a province or 2 away, generally. But again, here, this right here in the center of the Gaian Vale, this is a spawn point for the ritual armies. So, honestly, I'm probably better off just literally having an army just sit here and not do anything to prevent that spawn from even happening in the first place. Because otherwise stuff is going to spawn there and it's going to, irritate you to no end, right? So, just something to keep in mind, that you want to kind of, again, when Tor Ilir became the new site, I knew that meant that the ritual spawns would shift, right? They're not going to spawn stuff on the East Coast when there's other viable spawn points well within my territory that they can use to justify attacking me, right? So kind of getting to know the spawn points is something that comes with time. I don't think it's that important. Maybe if you're really struggling with it, you can do a little bit of save scumming, and nobody's gonna know. But just something to keep in mind, right? You usually have to reposition before. You want to check the ritual to find out what sites it's going to use a few turns before you cast it to make sure that you're in the proper position, right? So I mostly wanted to talk about those things. We can play out this turn, but I don't think there's really too much. You've seen kind of the thought process of playing out turns, and since there's so much more to do on these later turns, I don't want to get too lost in the sauce here. I want to be able to, keep this somewhat short without losing too much information. So they ended up spawning on the west here, the ritual armies. I've cut most of them off. You can see, even though there were 4 armies, my 2 were able to hold them off just with good positioning, ambushing, taking good fights, etc. I tried to get Alistar in there to help out, and he couldn't make it in time, right? Same thing with Valen. He's going to have to run through here now and try to cut this army off, because this guy's just on the retreat. He knows that there's no way forward if he goes to the south, so unfortunate as it may be. We did lose the High Vale. It's because I had no defenses there, and there's nothing you can really do about that. It just, what's done is done, right? I'm going to pull this army back a little bit, just to kind of put it in a more neutral position. I finally got Imric back from across the way. You can see he's building up an army. I'm actually going to start up another army here, because I can, basically. Probably going to have Imric go across the sea and try to help with the invasion. Maybe I'll send him to this southern flank and try to either draw attention or just, start landing there. I've taken this northern province, but what I'd actually like to do, well, and that's where I want another spare. Maybe that's, see, Imric's too far away for that. So maybe I'll leave either Tyrion or Gilgallion. Like, I'll probably leave Gilgallion up here, replace some of these Shadow Warriors, because 6 is not, this is not the secret. This is not the solution. I kept these just because I can't, make them according to my rules with playing without the DLC for this playthrough. And so, yeah. So anyway, I'm probably going to leave him up here to just hold on to this territory long enough to the point where I can get it kind of reinforced, right? And then ideally, I'd like to kind of leave a lord up here, but I don't want to worry too much about trying to conquer this. What I want to do is bring Tyrion back down to this mainland. I want to bring Imric up to this mainland, and I'd like to have one group push directly to the west and kind of cut them off here. I'd like to have another group sweep along the south here and take as much of this territory. And, once we've got control of this choke point here, I might have to just accept another choke point here until I can get, more forces engaged. It's going to depend on how much, honestly, once I control this point and this point here, then I'm actually probably going to want to go back to pushing on the north side. So we'll have to see how that evolves. I really would like to get, a 5th army up here just to hang around, and so that'll be Gilgallion. You can also see, for whatever reason, this is part of the ritual. I don't know what these guys were like, yeah, let's go up here and attack this. Some things that are tough to explain. But so those are the big points to cover for turn 110. I think I've discussed pretty much everything here. Research, we've got a pretty high research rate at this point. Just kind of grabbing everything I've talked about before. We got weapon strength for Phoenix Guard, Swordsmaster Ahoeth. I grabbed a couple of these to get my build times down. I'd like to get this as well. I'd like to get spy networks. Right now I'm working on Ancient Lair of Warding because that will give me recruit rank. I'd like to get this as well for upkeep on some of those high tier units. So that's kind of our idea there in the future. I'm going to take a look at diplomacy, but there's nothing really new that we have to show you here. In fact, I have enough influence that I can start using it to try to undermine other people. But again, who's really left, right? At this point in the game, we're pretty late in. Everything's and Nagorond just confederated the Cult of Pleasure, so I have no way to sabotage their relationship. I don't really have much of a stake in any of these. Maybe I could make Khemri and the Last Defenders want to be friends for a bit. But again, I don't really have a stake in this fight. I'm probably going to lose these territories to the Lizardmen once I complete the 4th ritual. But for now, I'm just kind of fortifying them. I could confederate Teclis, and it actually wouldn't be the worst thing just to get control of him as a legendary lord. I've got agreements with the Cult of Sotek, but again, these are going to expire eventually too, right? Once we complete the 4th ritual, a lot of this stuff goes out the window. So there's not a whole lot. That's why I've been trying to recruit a couple more armies and heroes, just because I have the influence to spend, and I don't really have anything to spend it on. You can see we're still kind of stuck at our capacity for some different heroes. You know what? In fact, maybe that's a good reason to just drop another noble up here. Lord recruit rank, hero recruit rank. And have him act as a scout. I know I've been saying that I wanted a mage up here, but I just can't get a mage, obviously. I don't have the capacity for it, and I still need to add mages to another couple armies that I'm starting now. So we'll have to worry about that another time. Or, well, that's why I'm using this noble as the scouting unit instead. There's not too much to discuss. I'm kind of thinking here in Karandkar I might leave certain buildings in place. like Black Creek Spire, maybe I'll put make a couple of buildings so that I can recruit some troops, so that I can build an army at least here instead of having to build them over on the donut and send them across every time. I think that would be nice. Other than that, I don't think there's nothing like new or valuable to discuss with the builds. We do have a couple of these. We can at least take a look at these ritual battles, right? Because these are pretty. They were tough. They're tough. We had to fight the Chaos once. I had an ambush that got detected right away, and then the army here, Driellen, who, even though on the campaign map it showed that she would get reinforced by the city, I got attacked by the Skaven, they walked into my ambush but defended against it, so I took a normal 1v1 there because the reinforcements from the city didn't happen. Then they followed back up with their second army and attacked me, got the ambush on my army, and so I had to fight that one out, and they're pretty scrappy, but overall they're pretty good fights. So we'll take a look at those here as well. With that being said, let's jump into the battles here, and then we'll jump in another 10 or 20 turns and see where we're at there. Alright, so here we've got that first battle against Chaos. It doesn't look too bad. It's kind of weird. They've got some good units and some crappy units. Of note, in particular, when Chaos, the Hell Cannon is always important. Honestly, these are not... Having played for this campaign out and fighting the Skaven, the Hell Cannon's not really as devastating as the Plague Claw Catapult. The thing about the Hell Cannon is it actually has homing projectiles, so that's what makes it really good. You'll see the effectiveness of the Plague Claw in the next couple battles. The Plague Claw Catapult for the Skaven really just tears me to shreds. The first fight is actually a struggle because of it. But anyway, so, I want to take this out, and I want to say that Chaos has no ranged units, but there's one exception, and that's the Marauder cavalry units, which do have ranged weapons, and surprisingly enough, these Marauder horsemen are actually pretty good. So, I've got my army set up at the back, defensive posture, same as always. In fact, I pull an extra unit of Lothern Sea Guards to set at the back, because I know that they have, they've got Chaos Knights Lances, another Chaos Knight, three high-level cavalry and 3 low-level cavalry. If these Chaos Warhounds get on my bolt throwers are done. But with that amount of cavalry, despite the fact that the battle will turn quite chaotic, they're going to be kind of running into a counter, right? Almost anything I have here except for the archers and the bolt throwers pretty much runs counter to these cavalry. So the important part will be trying to weaken up the infantry as it comes in. So you'll see, and then I also get a little bit of reinforcements from the garrison. It's really not much, but they end up paying off. So you can see I move out here. Those Hell Cannon shots do a decent bit of damage, but frankly I'm willing to let my dragons take some damage. I even try to get a couple of Dragon Breaths off just to weaken some of these units early on. The Dragon Breath will recharge by the time, these armies get back into battle. They also have, Hell Cannon Fire, and they have a mage, like the Chaos Lord, Sorcerer Lord, Hybrid Lord, so they usually have spells. But yeah, I'm so desperate to get back in the back line here, and these Marauder Horsemen chase me around, and they're doing decent damage, and it's so... Despite the fact that I have some good dragons in this army, I'm being held off, because I can't really chase these down, and I don't want to dive on this thing too early. So all in all, I moved out on this Hell Cannon too early. I'm too concerned about the damage it will do without really considering my positioning or the damage I'll take. Now, that reinforcement army did have some Illyrian Reaver archers, and these are going to be sweet, especially against a group like Chaos. These are just going to be able to run faster than pretty much anything besides the Warhounds. In addition, I've got, a small, couple of spearmen, couple archers, but by setting them up on the flank, I can create a really nice diversion or distraction or supporting attack. And, as per usual, you kind of don't care about what happens to your garrison troops because they can't leave the garrison. My bolt thrower is just kind of targeting down those knights. But yeah, so you can see here, this is perfect, right? We have pretty much exactly what we need to counter this. Chaos Knights and Warhounds, and they just run right into my Spearmen, which are not going to get hurt by them too badly. We've got archers going there. Now, I finally get my Illyrian Reaver archers in a good position, and they can start fighting the horsemen, which frees me up to go after the Hell Cannon. But of course, this is a lot of micro, so these Illyrian Reavers get caught, and you can see one hit from these Chaos Knights is pretty devastating. So those I think are the big pointers of this fight, right? I do try to focus down some of these Chaos Warriors, some of the Chosen, like some of their stronger units. Again, you can see they're trying to get the flank prepared, but having this one unit in the back just kind of helps prevent them from even going for it in the first place. You can see, sadly, the Noble actually takes a lot of damage here, and I'm so committed to this. I have my Moondragon Dew of Breath on the Chaos Knights, and it actually does some pretty bad damage to my Moondragon. Struggling to get it out of there. I am successfully running stuff around with the Illyrian Reaver Archers, though. Again, the typical Celestial Mage that I've had a lot of the times, casting the debuffs, just trying to keep the Bolt Throwers active on whatever they can be. At this point, I should honestly just reset them and let them pick their own targets and stop microing them too much. But overall, you can see, this is what I'm talking about, right? So now I've got this little flank in a defensive posture, and they've just got free reign to fire their arrows into whatever. The Lord does kind of get in here, starts doing a little bit of damage, but yeah, I mean, their cavalry runs into the outside. Their giants start attacking my Lord, focus fire it down with the archers. My Illyrian Reaver Archers. Yeah, and see, even this dragon. That dragon just could not get out of battle from these Chaos Knights and almost dies. But other than that, again, you can see, I didn't really have to micro too much with my archers there, and they took out most of that stuff. He casts a pretty good Burning Head here, but it doesn't really do that much damage still. I lose track of the flank. I just have to reposition them a little bit in order to get them working again. Here again, we've got the Bolt Throwers. Like I said, I've just repositioned them so that they can fire on their own. And that's pretty much the wrap. Yeah. I do kind of do the thing after the battle. Well, so you want to let it play out a little bit, because you can see all this damage counts. All this damage counts in the post game because this army's not going to die. I also do kind of the cheeky thing of, I've got the healing spell on my Lore Master. I just group up my weakened units and we cast a few heals on them to try to get them back up. That dragon just being at dangerously low health I don't feel good about that. So we want to make sure, because there's the potential for a follow-up attack perhaps, or at least even after recovery, I'm going to probably need this dragon for the next fight. So that pretty much does it for this battle, though. Well, obviously, everything's run away, and this is right about where it ends. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the next one. Take a look at a couple of those Skaven Ritual Army battles. Alright, so here we are with the Skaven army, and honestly, at first glance, this is a pretty crappy army. They've got a lot of, ranged units, a lot of Night Runners, Night Runners with slings, Night Runners without slings, or these are all Gutter Runners? I can never keep the two of those straight. Night Runners are earlier, but so ton of Gutter Runners. Those are going to have stock. Those are going to be able to disappear. They're going to be pretty decent, but honestly, they're not their infantry sucks, right? They have one single unit of Storm Vermin. If I can focus that down a bit with my infantry or with my artillery, it'll be good. I have a couple of Rat Ogres, but I have Phoenix Guard. Rat Ogres are not going to get past Phoenix Guard and Lothern Sea Guard. So their infantry is irrelevant. Their missile units are they're okay. They're okay because they have the stock. They're just going to be able to shoot at me a lot without me responding immediately. It's going to make it hard to micro. So this army, pretty standard. This is a little bit of a weaker army. This is Driellen's army, and she's missing a mage and a lore master. So, and I don't have the cap for it at that point in time. I've got one Phoenix here. I would like to recruit a dragon, but didn't have time. But I've got this other Phoenix out on the flank. And so I just kind of walk it, right? We walk the Phoenix up. Bolt throwers doing their thing. Now here, let's take a look. You can see, that's one shot from the Plague Claw catapults. Devastating. And it's going to fire a second volley that's going to be even more devastating. The Plague Claw catapults are a decent target for your bolt throwers to counter target. But I positioned so far back for my own sake that we're out of range of this, right? We send the Phoenix in there. Let's see how that second hit did. Yeah, that's one shot, one volley from a Plague Claw catapult, and this is where those Lothern Sea Guards are left. So you can see it's pretty good to target them down. My My bolt throwers are hopefully target firing on the storm vermin at this point in time. I mean, they are. And it's hard to, like, I don't even really know about this. Like, they got a big missile unit flank coming in here, but we're not even really worried about that. I do have a big net of Ammontalk overcast here. Traps a bunch of those units in place. Great thing to do with missile-heavy armies, and especially once they've already marched across the map. You can see they're starting to throw down some spells, still getting some hit with the Plague Claw catapults. But again, like Rat Ogres, that charge looked pretty bad, right? But you can see it wasn't that bad for the Lothern Sea Guards. Like, that's what they're here for, right? So we start kind of engaging the heroes a little bit. I probably could have put my Handmaiden into actual battle, but just having her sit back and snipe I thought was all right. And here's where, they get revealed on the left, and I recognize, hey, they're kind of coming in. You can also see this Plague Claw catapult gets to fire even with my Phoenix taking it down drastically, and just another great shot there that you get to see the power of. So here, it's hard with these hidden units too, because it's hard to recognize, like, why isn't this fight over? It looks like it's well in my favor, but that's because I can't see this. So here's another, like I said, big missile flank. I've got I've got several units repositioned to shoot in that direction. And at some point here, I should have the mana to do an overcast on the net of Ammontalk to pin him in place, chase him down a little bit. Finally got rid of that Plague Claw catapult. I've got my hero chasing down their lord. I've got my Frostheart Phoenix kind of in place to take things out. Do we get that overcast? There it is. And so then I can kind of move my units in. Other than that, it's just like counter-firing on their ranged units with mine, making sure that my formation holds up reasonably well and keeping my melee units in place. You can see we still, like, Phoenix Guard took some pretty bad hits here, but we're going to pull it out. Like, we're going to pull it off pretty decently. And that's pretty much the fight, right? Like, at this point, it's just missile unit versus missile unit. It's Skaven, right? They just keep diving back in, run around their Rat Ogres a little bit and screw around with their Lord. But basically just having set up my missile units to counter theirs, and they just keep running into it. So, pretty standard fight, nothing too special. Like I said, it does show how strong a Plague Claw catapult is, even in the later stages of the game. I mean, I guess I'm using Lothern Sea Guard, which is an equivalent tier unit, but just what a devastating counter that is. That being said, even with like a Phoenix with some careful play, despite the fact that they had all those ranged units, they didn't leave anything behind to protect their artillery. And even with that, Lothern Sea Guards with shields are a good counter to infantry and to missile units, and like cavalry, but they didn't even have any, right? Like the Rat Ogres that hit on the flank. So, a pretty good fight. Honestly, a pretty crappy army from the Skaven. Again, the Gutter Runners are like, those are a pretty decent unit, but the Clan Rats are just low. Like, those are not going to kill my Phoenix Guard. The Phoenix Guard took way more damage from the catapult. But so, not a terribly complex fight, right? Let's jump into the last fight here. We'll see where I got ambushed by the Skaven and how I kind of turn it around. So, being an ambush battle, we don't know what we're coming up against. I did remember looking at this on the map ahead of time when they all spawned, trying to decide if I wanted to go in for an early attack or if I wanted to wait and try to ambush them. And I knew that this army was a little bit better. Now, fortunately, their setup, I mean, kind of sucks. Like, the trees, this part just isn't really necessary, right? If you get an ambush battle, you want to deploy right on their lines, especially with all these melee units. Like, look at how exposed these are. You just want to crash upon whatever you can as early on as you can, if that's what's going to give you the advantage. Now, this is in a decent spot, right? And having the missile units a little further back, but he's just so far back, it still doesn't give me enough time to set up here, right? But moving hopefully reduces a little bit of that damage. I basically just immediately tell my bolt claw throwers to fire. Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers. And I quickly realize, it might actually be better to have them target down this Plague Claw catapult because it's in range this time. So with two of them firing on it, plus the Frostheart Phoenix, should be able to take it down pretty quickly. I missed a little bit of this action up front, and I should have watched it. So I tried to do like a 4-3-4 positioning here. And you can see it just didn't matter because they were still close enough to fall upon me. I even have my mage cast this, like the Net of Ammontalk, to kind of pin them down as best I can. It doesn't give me enough time to get into position, but so then you adapt, right? At this point I say, okay, send the Phoenix Guard in then at what's near them, right? Position to kind of defend myself. I at least got this back wall up, and we can really focus down. Like this unit, you know, it's not going to shoot anything. So, okay, fine. Fight. Like, intentionally fight. Get into melee on purpose. Spearmen are going to beat ogres. Another group of spearmen on ogres that can't move, really good. Their warlord getting hit by my phoenix, not bad. I mean, this thing's actually pretty, it's like kind of scary, but the fact that we pin it down and surround it makes it a lot less scary. Again, here, these units kind of got to me early, but by surrounding them, we kind of negate that advantage. And you can even see this, like, I get one pretty lucky early snipe on the catapults. I end up running my Phoenix away because we got gutter runners with poison. I just don't want to, I don't want to, like, waste the Phoenix when I can just be patient with my own artillery and counter out theirs. It's not, you know, the best option, or, well, it's not what I want to do with my artillery, but it's what's going to work. So, yeah. And from here, I don't know, things just kind of devolve. I mean, I try to maintain formation as much as I can, try to have my melee units fight them off. Phoenix is running around, trying to keep them in battle. At this, you know, we're chasing this one off, and I don't find that super useful. Really wishing that some of these shots would hit more often, but they just don't, and it is what it is. These Poison Wind Globadiers finally appear. Honestly, you wonder how much friendly fire they're doing in there compared to how much real damage they're doing. Kind of a weak formation, you know, and I'm getting hit on the flanks by some of these too. Using this Phoenix to just try to chase stuff off and help out. Didn't have a lot of room for microing this Phoenix properly, unfortunately. And you can see, so like, I mean, their reinforcements show up, but they're still way across the map, so they're going to trickle in. Soon enough, I'm going to want to kind of, yeah, here we go. You kind of want to reform, right? I've got a few of these units coming in from the north here, so I end up reforming my ranks a little bit to kind of counter that out and clash with them. We're trying to take out these night runners on the side, you know, take out this flank so that we can focus more on the main side. But here we get a nice little chain route, and that finally buys me the time I need to reposition my actual, you know, melee line and start chasing down their Globadiers. At this point, you know, the Plague Claw catapults finally got destroyed. We got their Lord taken out as well on that counterattack. And so here it's just kind of like I take a weird position with my Bolt Claw throwers because we keep getting hit on the flanks by some weird like missile unit harass here. So I do end up pointing one bolt thrower this direction, the other bolt thrower this direction where the bulk of their forces are. You can see that their reinforcements still trudging through the forest, but I don't know that, and I don't want to just kind of give them a free opportunity to hit me. But again, this turns into similar to what the last battle was, right? Now that we've won that initial skirmish, it's basically just about, like, they're going to run away, and you're going to shoot them in the back a lot, and then they come running back in, and you shoot them in the face a lot, and usually that makes them run away again. So I've got like this weird little formation. I want this Phoenix Guard to survive, so I've got him in the middle. We've kind of just got Phoenix Guard on every side because I'm not... with all these stock units and all like this 2 army setup, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, and we just get hit on this flank so much time. So many times it makes me paranoid. We finally shut them down. The units that they had on this flank just keep trickling back. This Lord is doing, I don't know who took over this thing, possessed by the Ghost of Legend, but he's just dodging every, like, arrow shot. So at some point I decided to hit him with the Net of Ammontalk, so that can't happen anymore. And, so at this point I kind of realized, hey, bolt thrower's shooting way over there. Haven't had anything hit me on that side. Probably need to reposition at least a little bit here. I don't, obviously not yet, but looking at the situation, that's kind of the thing that you should realize. That's the analysis you should have. We're starting to get these spotting, like the stock units coming through the forest. Yeah, and so you can see I at least rotate my units to face the right direction. At some point I realized the bolt throwers are not doing any good up front. Yeah, we do manage to snipe out that Lord as well. I got a archer that ran out of ammo. Yeah, and here we finally start to reposition things at least a little bit. But by then it almost doesn't matter, right? This is the army that I've already fought that you saw in the previous matchup. and they're already so badly beaten that we triggered the army loss penalty, and they have to run away anyhow. So, with that being said, that covers all the fights from turn 100 to a turn 110. I think it was good to get some of these ritual battles in. Once again, a lot of these fights are going to look the same. Well, the ritual battles, at least, are going to look the same going forward, right? Like, that was the level 3 ritual. The next levels are going to feature more Skaven, less Chaos. And so we're just going to have to deal with that as it comes. Hopefully I can get enough armies, decently positioned in my territory to help, try to figure things out. It'll depend on if the ritual sites shift around at all, especially depending on how much I take in the west. Some weird things could happen. But ideally, I want to kind of allow them to spawn on that west coast and then move in and hit them from all sides if possible. Leave 1 or 2 armies by the Gaean Vale to try to suppress that spawn point. And probably still leave something at least halfway to Lothern in case something really bad happens. But with that being said, we're going to move on here, see if we come back in another 10 or 20 turns, and we'll look at things when we get there. Alright, so here we are on turn 120. And honestly, I think this is going to be the last turn. I think this is where we're going to end the guide. As you can see, things are going quite a bit better than I really expected. On turn 110, I was talking about, I took this northern province with, those 2 armies and wanted to just kind of secure it, right? Almost use this as bait while I push through the middle. Well, as you can see, that wasn't necessary. It's hard to say. Honestly, I think what's been happening is they're mostly just fighting the lizardmen here. There's nothing here to see now, but 2 turns ago we had both Crone Hellebron and Morathi engaging in combat around here. I think Crone Hellebron was sieging the Mirror Pool of Tepak. So we can't see that now, but I've faced very little resistance. Really the only event that I have to discuss even was, right shortly after turn 110, we did have like a full strength army come in here and make landfall. This is, when I just captured the monoliths, I had a couple armies sitting here. So I split them up and threw them both on ambush on either side of this forest here. So wherever that army went, it would run into them. It did run into an army here, and it actually was pretty strong. Like, this was a strong army with a bunch of the heavy cavalry in it, and it was fighting, a pretty fresh army with some low-level lord and heroes. So we will take a look at that battle after this. But besides that, I don't think... I know that there wasn't anything else to look at. I haven't even had to play really any of these battles out, at least nothing significant. So that's pretty much it. That's the only thing that really happened. Everything else has just been an auto-resolve. Again, you can see the progress speaks for itself, right? I'm trying to even think of what other armies I saw. There was a little Beastman army that spawned here, and I took it out on my way. There's been 1 or 2 of these black arcs that I've taken out. We got this one sitting here, but without something for them to support, they can't, like, this black arc for the AI won't attack my city, so they are just going to do nothing and sit there. In fact, that's what this army that I've raised is for, is to go up here and take that out, just because this is a nuisance. And then I have another army here, to defend these provinces, which I don't even seem to need. Again, there's really not much to say. This really went pretty much according to plan. Some of these cities, like Clark-Herrand, had a defensive structure in it. Nagarond did. Nagarond, because it's a capital, just naturally has strong defenses without needing it. I don't even think Harganeth did. Grand did. So a couple of these I had to group up these 2 armies at. But other than that, I haven't even seen any armies in here. I kept moving. I ended up having Tyrion, once I dealt with this army, once I scouted ahead with this noble a little bit. Here we go. Finally, they bring back something to fight me with, and honestly, my plan has been... Well, we'll talk about that in a bit. I had this noble scouting ahead down here. I was able to take, pretty much all of this uncontested. I didn't fight a single army through any of this. So I can grab, Twisted Glade with an army and, go south to Twisted Glade, Val's Anvil. Meanwhile, I had Alariel hit Hotek's Column, Venom Glade. I had them both regroup for Clark-Herrand, split them up a little bit, as you can see, to just kind of, take control of the rest of this and solidify my grasp. Same kind of thing with Tyrion. Tyrion and Gilgallion. Once I fended off that ambush here at the monoliths and scouted that there wasn't really anything to do, I looked and I saw Harganeth this week. They had a lord here in Nagorond that they just weren't really doing anything with. Oh yeah, actually they pulled their lord out of Nagorond, put it in the great arena that had no defenses, and I like doubled up on it with these two armies and was able to auto-resolve that fight. Before that I had Tyrion land back by Harganeth and attack it. I had Gilgallion just kind of hit one province. I mean, he could reach each one of these in one turn at a time. So I was able to just peg my way through those with basically no resistance. I did actually pop the Invocation of Isha here. Like I've been saying, I was saving it for when I would try to go on a conquest of this northern territory, and we're pretty much done with that, right? Again, I said it before when we had control of just the island that I could sit on this and just wait it out and win the game. Obviously, with this, I mean, I don't want to say we've doubled the amount of territory we have, 71 settlements, but probably close. This is probably 40% of my territory now, maybe 30%. I mean, we've gained so much in such a short time. My income has gone up a bunch. I've actually made 1, 2, 3... Oh, wait, no, Imric's up here. 3 new armies, and yet my income is higher than it's ever been before. I basically can't build armies fast enough to keep up with the income that I have. I mean, that's where we're at, right? This is why I've said, and this is why I want this to be the last turn. This is also why I've said, even at the end of part 3, you could probably manage this the rest of the way on your own. Don't get me wrong, I've still had some tough fights. I've still had some, not problems with positioning, but some challenges that required either good positioning or playing out the fights. But again, I really, I came over here with, 3 armies? Well, eventually 4. Before I really was even taking territory and making money off of this, I brought 4 armies over here. Imagine if I just had those 4... I mean, you can see I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full-sized armies on the island. Imagine if I had 10. Imagine if I had 10 armies here, I'd have, an extra 1 to cover all 3 of my possible basically 1 for each, corner of the continent, right? And instead, by going over here, I've made enough money to produce 3 additional armies. And so one of those I have left here on the continent. So I suppose you should say I had 9 when I departed from whatever you would call this, the donut. I don't know the name for this continent, actually. But anyway, I would have had 9 total armies when I left it. That's 3 armies per ritual site. It would be very difficult to successfully attack me and exploit me at that time. You can see that, the Dark Elves are actually progressing pretty close to a ritual. They've been able to make some progress down here in the south. Somehow they're still holding on to these. I wonder if this... Well, looks like I have vision over some of this. Maybe not. It's hard to tell if this is fogged. It looks like there's fog of war here. I've been spawning intervention armies. They haven't been doing very well. 1 spawned here, and there was 2 armies that just instantly killed it. So they're kind of out in the corners of the map. So they might actually be able to survive and defend themselves when it comes to the ritual battle, or the ritual sites, right? I'm gonna have to work to knock out whatever one they end up producing here in the north, which should be their capital at the time. So again, shouldn't be too difficult. But basically you can see I really haven't had to do anything special here. I've auto-resolved my way through all of these. When there's a city that has actual defenses in it, you just put both armies on it. I've got, these 2 nobles that are scouting ahead so that I know whether these, totally unprotected territories are going to be in trouble or not. And that's pretty much it. These forces back over here, I had to clean up that one army that attacked me for the ritual. We took, both of these got blown up, and in fact I didn't do anything with them because we just hit the level 5 population surplus so that I could upgrade this city. I don't know. We'll leave these for a turn or two. Well, we don't even need those. I'll leave them for a turn and then get some upgrades done on the rest of these. But we're probably going to lose them anyway, right? I still have 2 more rituals to trigger, and as long as these haven't changed, which they still haven't, which is spectacular, the ritual's probably going to trigger here. I tried to position these armies far enough away that they can kind of get in range to help within 1 turn, or at the very least, all I'm really going to lose is some places that have already been destroyed. And we'll trigger that. We'll trigger that this turn. I'll come back to it in a bit. I don't think that I really have too much more to talk about here, but I just kind of want to just double check and survey. I mean, again, you can see using these nobles to scout ahead, right? I decided not to take Hag Hall because I figured I could clear up this province, and now we do have Morathi coming in, but even in March stance, she's not going to be able to reach anything. So I kind of want to see... The question here is, where do I think she's going to go, and who do I think... Like, I want to send Alariel down south to try to protect Val's Anvil if necessary, because this doesn't have any defenses at it, and Alariel can probably go toe-to-toe with Morathi. Meanwhile, Rana, this army here, not too strong, but Venomglade does have some defenses constructed at this time, so they'll be able to hold out there. I would hope. I'd think they'll be able to hold out there rather easily or successfully. I'm just kind of speeding through builds as I talk here because I kind of know what I want from most of these places. Yeah, and even up here, right? Like, I've got this one army that I'm going to have backtrack to fight this, most likely. And we'll kind of see how that goes. I kind of want to see if I can sneak up on them a little bit. I also... Ooh, yeah, okay. And I also wanted to make sure I knew what they had in this army before I left this person too exposed. Now that I see that, I'm a lot more confident about just going out there and trying to trap them in the corner. Though I would say another good strategy, especially when they start doing stuff like this, if I move this army up here and just park it in ambush stance for a turn, if they don't catch the ambush, they're going to be like, oh yeah, it's fine for me to sit here. In fact, that had just happened with Driellen, where they brought a Black Ark about halfway over. I put Driellen in ambush, and they put the Black Ark right on top of the city, walked out and killed it. So yeah, really easy. So let's talk forward-going strategy a little bit here, right? Or, well, should we... I mean, yeah, we're going to talk strategy a little bit. I know that... Oh, they don't have it anymore. There must have been a rebellion. Iron Frost. This place did have a Dark Elf settlement. Looking at it, well, it looks like they took this over. I didn't think they would have as much of this territory. The reality is I'm probably going to try to take the Altar of Ultimate Darkness and then just sit on it. I know I said that when it came to this province. At some point, I want to kind of establish a chokehold on the northern front and not really try too hard to push them back, or at least I'd rather push across the... Like here's the plan, right? I've got this army moving to hit this person. I'd like to keep it that way. I'm going to take Tyrion and Gilgallion and send them to recapture like Kael'ra capture these two cities. Once I do that, I'm going to send them down here and kind of run along this path. This is terrible territory for me to take and try to hold, so I'll probably just blow it up. But what I really wanted, like, I'll go from here and then I can route back up and just try to clean up as long as I can hold this western point, right? In the meantime, with Alariel and Rana, I'm going to push down to the south, right? Things are pretty spread out here, but so I should be able to knock out this city and start pushing down into this territory. I probably want to take this Grey Guardians, but the real issue is that as soon as I complete this ritual, Hexoatl is going to declare war on me as well. So I don't want to spread myself too thin. Most likely, I'm just going to try to take the Iron Peaks province, right? That way I can maybe have Alariel hold the line here, have Rana push through the west here, and maybe just wipe these out, while Tyrion and Gilgallion are pushing through here so that they don't have to, like, dip down across. We don't have to worry about them taking stuff from here. I mean, maybe they will. Maybe they'll use a lord from here and move up. You know, it's hard to say, but that's the plan, right? Have these two armies, and in fact, I have a third reinforcing, because I sent this army out to hit Arnheim here and kind of be able to pull in from the flank just so that we don't have to reach all the way down to there and instead can push in from there. But truthfully, I might want to just leave this army sitting here at Arnheim to catch anything Like if the Dark Elves or Hexwaddle try to launch an attack from there, you know, this would be a good point of entry for them as well. So I might try to just keep this army around there to block it off, and then these two can focus on just pushing to the west quickly, taking control of this territory and solidifying my grasp on it. So that's what I'm thinking there. Back on the island, there's really not too much to say. I've got, you know, people positioned essentially in ranged. Like if the ritual spawns here, I can get this person probably over here in a single turn. I've already got Eltharion in that same position for defense. Well, but he doesn't even... I mean, if the ritual spawns here, but I don't think it will, right? We're at the Lothern, Toralier, and Gaean Vale. So, most likely, it's either going to spawn here at the Gaean Vale, and Alistar is going to have to try to box these out on his own. We're probably going to lose this territory, but if they spawn here, but with the amount of money I have, is that really a concern? I don't think so, not so much. We've got walls on the Gaean Vale, and we can pull Alistar back, and hopefully in a couple of turns we can get these armies to pull in and reinforce. The idea is the same on the west coast, right? Driellen will be right here. She'll kind of receive the brunt of whatever happens, but I will be able to move Caladriel and Imric within range to support within a single turn. So that's actually the plan for the ritual. With that being said, I am going to make a quick save here, but then we're going to activate the ritual and see how it turns out. We're gonna trigger the ritual and see how it goes, just in case something goes horribly wrong, which I doubt. But right, better safe than sorry. Something you should do in your own campaigns. Make a save before you make a big decision. That's why I have a backup save slot anyway. Yeah, we already know where the sites are. So where's the enemies? Yeah, see, and they spawned on the east side, which seems strange to me, but it's probably because this is the least populated area that I have, right? It's going to be the most exposed. Ooh, the real problem is, like, how do I... Well, I just have to hold out with, you know, just Eltharion and Valen here. Now, I want to make sure I don't march into range of that, which we can't reach anyway. Yeah, this is probably going to be brutal. This is going to be an absolutely brutal battle for Tor Yvoress, so that might make a great, you know, finale battle for the series. Just kind of looking at these armies here, especially if I let something like this survive. Well, once the Chaos Knights get into the city, like, these aren't too big of armies. This one's probably the scariest one of all. This one's pretty decent. Just a lot of the infantry, but I'm not super worried about that. This Skaven army is not that scary. So we're probably gonna... I'll figure these out afterwards. I don't know if I want to... Like, I'd like to separate these battles. Instead of trying to play them out and putting that into the turn, I'd like to play through them myself and kind of see how it goes. My thought process is, especially if I can attack these armies and get reinforcements from the city, that's huge. That would be a big start. Might even consider auto-resolving them and just healing after. But my thought process is, hit this Skaven army first. It's kind of got a mix and match of units, and actually I really wish I would have... Now's the time where I wish I would have put some dragons. Get rid of these 2 bolt claws, 2 of these, and have 2 dragons in there, because taking out this artillery is going to be tough. But so that's the plan, right? Hit this Skaven army. Because Skaven armies are so numerous, I'll be able to replenish enough that I can fight this army, which is probably the strongest and most dangerous, at least on first glance. This is definitely going to be... I don't know, it's tough. I mean, this one has those knights, but the knights will be a little bit easier to fight on a siege, right? This one has a lot of the scary infantry, so maybe we'll actually just take these 2, because they're both in range of the city. I won't be able to reinforce after that. This is tough. This is going to be a tough spot. Eltharion might get wounded here, but we'll see. I mean, I'm going to start running this character across. You know, you want to play as though, you know, account for the worst case scenario, try to get as much support as you can. I really don't... I want to run Alistar out there, but I really don't think that it would be worth it. And to be honest, from this, I think the next time I might try to pull Alistar further back into the Gaean Vale. I'm kind of surprised nothing spawned on the west coast, especially with how spread out I had those armies. But who knows? I don't know the formula that makes those decisions, so it's tough for me to say. I've got these heroes trying to get to this army to reinforce it. I actually need another set of heroes like that for Imric as well. I haven't built enough mage towers in a lot of these places, and I really need to, right? In fact, a lot of the times what I've been doing is building the Elven Court, like the aristocracy building first, because I can max it at tier 4, right? Whereas I can't max the mage building until tier 5. However, I can get the capacity for them at tier 4, and I mean, I've been pretty much at capacity most of the game, but you can see now is kind of that turning point where what I actually do need is the mage buildings first. So I'm trying to focus on making those, constructing those earlier if I can. You know what? I don't think that this will be useful. We're going to run Imric this direction just to be safe, right? What if they send everything to the north and this army gets caught out in an ambush and dies? But yeah, especially after looking at these, what I really should have done with these armies while they were, you know, sitting here waiting for things to happen, definitely could have refitted them a little bit better. I mean, I've talked about army composition enough. If you're not sure, I mean, like this is what they should look like, even with these cut, right? Like this is what they should look like with, I'm just missing the mage and the lore master. You know, something like Driellen's army, even this would be a little bit better instead of the one Arcane Phoenix. Like, these are all good armies, and you can see they match pretty well. So just something to keep in mind. I'm gonna get punished for that by being lazy with my armies here on the East Coast. We're gonna get hit decently hard there, but again, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You can see my income is just through the roof. I'm not like really concerned about any of those things. We're gonna grab Gilgalion and have him start marching this direction. We're gonna grab Tyrion and have him do the exact same thing. Gilgalion actually sadly can't even make it as far as Tyrion can. So we'll park them there. We've already moved Rana and Alariel, and we've already moved Yasmin, and we've already moved Loth. So those are pretty much done. Again, you know, we triggered the ritual. I'm doing what I can in response. I'll play these fights. Well, I'm going to do these battles, and we'll talk about them. I'll showcase whatever I need to showcase after the fact. I don't necessarily want to go through and look at these right now. Because if I do play them out, that's going to be pretty time consuming, and I'd rather be able to review it after the fact and fast forward it so I can do a voiceover and not have to play them at the same time. Save us a little bit of time. With that being said, let's take a look. There's not too much to build. You can see I'm trying to get these mage built towers up. We've got, you know, taken a lot of territory here. Like I've said, a lot of these, like, I'm just focused on growth and economy because I don't feel threatened on most of these. You know, initially I had built some defenses in some of these earlier ones that I took, but, you know, the further we get and the further ahead that I scout, I mean, I can see that there's no, like, I don't need to worry about really defending these too heavily because my armies are staying pretty nearby. Ooh, we'll definitely take that. And we're just not being threatened very directly, right? So without the real threat or pressure on these cities, there's really no need to have those kind of concerns. I mean, you can see I'm doing a lot of the embassy buildings. I don't know if that will pay off necessarily. Well, it'll help with the ports. It helps with the trade. But again, once we finish this ritual, it's going to force us to go to war with some of our trade partners, like Hexwaddle for sure, perhaps the Last Defenders. I'm not sure how that works with... because I know it's not always all of them. Like, if I go here... They don't like that I've completed rites and rituals, but I don't think that necessarily means I'll go to war with them. Though the rest of them should actually be pretty good. So my trade will be pretty stable. I don't have to worry about that too much. It's something to consider. You know, if really you don't have any trade partners, maybe you should be putting more into the Elven Artisan. And you can see even in a province like this, where there's not a single port, I have put more into the Elven Artisan buildings. Partly because I can't build the embassies, but still for the same reasons, right? Because there's no port there. And I just can't make it. That looks like that's everything to build. So we'll take another look at the technology tree here. I mean, there's not a lot to talk about that we haven't talked about already. You know, I really would like I should like to get this next for the Lore Master recruit rank, maybe the Phoenixes. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind just finishing these up so I can, well, all this new territory that I take that I'm having to restructure, I can build them up pretty fast. I definitely want to get this, though, get the recruit rank. But again, that's why we're doing this, right? Recruit rank for the armies that I'm making, because it'll just help. It'll help the baseline. If a whole army has a couple of good heroes and low rank units, we're really not gonna, those heroes aren't gonna get to live long anyway. I've skipped most of the research for units that I am not using or don't plan to use. I can get something like this for, like this one, the drummers, for the speed for some of my, ground infantry. I want to say, I was going to say there's an armor upgrade I can get as well, and weapon strength and melee attack. These would actually be really nice. This is going to be another priority research, arcane studies, rapid resettlement, the dragon and phoenix upgrades here, and eventually this one as well, because I do have some phoenixes. Those are going to be kind of the remaining priority research. This would be great, obviously, casualty replenishment, but I just don't have alchemy workshop. Kilns, again, would be great, but I don't have it. Eastern trade contacts from an Eastern bazaar. I'm not sure what that one is either. We could go through and look at them, but if we don't have it, what difference does it make? So, just some things to look at. I also probably should have cast this right at the start of the turn before making all the builds, but I don't care. I'm making 30,000 gold a turn now. I have 200,000 in the bank. Those aren't even that, crazy of numbers, but I'm set. I'm very stable there. I'm not concerned about that stuff at all. I might look at skill trees for a little bit. I mean, for archmages, this one's just not very high level. I've been putting this bowmaster on pretty much everything I can because I have very missile heavy armies, and if I'm relying on that, I need to focus on that. The mages, I have a ton of these celestial mages. Curse of the Midnight Wind for the armor debuff and the melee attack. This just helps you survive and helps your archers do more damage. Uranon's Thunderbolt, great for sniping enemy artillery. That's like the main thing that you use it for, or the main benefit that it has, because it has a big that 300 meter range, right? Especially if I get my mage on I usually like to go the Elven Steed because they're fast, so I can kind of run my mage out there, cast some magic, and run them back if I need to. Comet of Cassandora is really good. I usually prefer, you can see it's more expensive than the Chain Lightning. That's why we take the magic reserves. But the Chain Lightning is unpredictable, right? This is going to move wherever it wants to move. Comet of Cassandora is going to hit where you mark it, and so this can do some really significant damage, especially against stuff like Blackguard of Nagaron. The Lore Master of Hoeth, this is a hybrid unit. Since it's a mage lord, I'm focusing on their personal skills for damage and defense instead of their magic, right? On something like Tyrion's army, that Lore Master of Hoeth is going to be mostly spellcaster first. I like to take the upgraded Weason's Wild Form because if I overcast it, it affects allies in range, increasing armor and damage, right? Earthblood, this is an obvious choice. It heals things, right? I usually take a point in each of these and I take these early on, right? Because you have to invest a lot of points in Weason's Wild Form, but Harmonic Convergence is just at tier 1, it's a nice buff you can cast on your lord, right? At the Spirit Leech is a nice single target damage spell that's pretty cheap, so this is good for trying to snipe enemy lords, right? This is very much, if you build it on the magic side, it's a support caster, right? But again, once I've got a lot of points in all of these, see, and I don't really use Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, extended cast range to 300 meters, sure, that might be nice, but I feel the damage is kind of negligible. Again, this is a support caster, right? Maybe to use this to slow something down, but then it won't matter if it's in range, blah, blah, blah. You're better off just, focusing on those kinds of damage spells with your mage. Again, with most heroes, like this mage, you can see I have everything, right? Why not, right? I still am going to have another 5 skill points to spend. Put one into the Harmonic Convergence maybe, even though I'm not sure I'll even use it on this character. I put points into Specialist so I can do stuff like block army or steal technology if I want to. And at this point, I'm just pushing through territory so fast I don't really have time to steal technology. But especially something like block army, this can be really nice to prevent somebody from running away from you. Nobles, these are really obvious and really straightforward. They only have really one skill line. They're for upgrading their personal combat skills, right? The combat skill tree. You always want to max out replenish troops. I mean, this is essentially the main reason you put a noble in every army. Increased trade is nice. It's probably not making a big difference, especially in an offensive push, but eventually you have points that you have nowhere else to put, right? I usually grab 2 Lizardman Affairs to 1 Man's Knowledge, especially in the Vortex campaign. Now, maybe in Mortal Empires, I would do it a little differently, but I don't think you need the diplomatic relations with High Elves. You can get that in other ways. The entertainment buildings, that's your public order building, and so this doesn't have a ton of value. I mean, income from trade 3% is on all of them, right? So Man's Affairs for bonus from ports, Lizardman Affairs, this is almost more for the relations with Lizardmen, but also for the income from industry building, right? Ideally, you'll be building a lot of those, so this building will help. So that's pretty much what skill trees look like. Tyrion, we've talked about this a lot, but I've focused a lot on his personal skills this campaign. At this point, I'm trying to get him a couple of decent buffs for his army as well before he hits max level. Lightning Strike, is nice and great in a lot of situations, and here I just haven't needed it. Tyrion's strong enough, his army's good enough, and I'm not running him around alone, so I'm not going to use Lightning Strike very often anyway. Alaria we can take a look at, but I would have inherited her, so hers is not going to be the best. But I got her pretty early on, so there's not too much crazy stuff. This is pretty much how I would have built her anyways, right? Bowmaster again, like I've taught. I mean, like that applies to all of these units here, right? That's huge, and especially so. This is if you have the DLC and you've got Sisters and Lothern Seaguard, like. This is a huge bonus. Reload reduction time for 80% of your army. Pretty good. I wasn't really sure what to take out of these. I mean, Tempest is like, it's kind of cool. Like, it's an anti-air unit vortex spell, but the problem is that it's randomly moving. Again, it's good against flying, reduces their speed by a lot, so it can be really helpful. And I kind of, I'm gonna get it eventually, right? Alariel's only 24 only level 24. I have the points to put into here. I got Banishment, though frankly I don't need it because I have this Light Mage, right? And I'll be able to max out Banishment on this character quite easily. It's important to have Net of Amantok here, especially for an archer-heavy army, so that's kind of what's important there. Imric, I pulled him pretty late. I don't even know. Yeah, this sucks. This sucks. Okay. I mean, we could talk about what kind of skills you could put in Imric, but that might be better on either a separate video or during his campaign. Basically, he's good at buffing dragons. I mean, this would be a great skill to get. I'm probably going to want this next. We've got, fire resistance. We've got he boosts like the cavalry units, like dragon princes and dragons, right? That's what's good with him. He also has a lot of like really good abilities and strengths himself. So he's a great he's a great combat lord to build. Eltharion is the last one. I mean, there's not much to talk about because I haven't built him up much. He's a DLC character as well, but I believe I talked about this already, but this is a big bonus, the construction cost for wall and garrison buildings for all provinces. Like the cost and the time reduction. Huge. Amazing. Again, like this, according to my rules for this playthrough, I can't use Mistwalker units. He already had this in here. This, I basically would never recommend this, because you can just get this, right? Like, you would rather have Phoenix Guard long-term than Lothern Sea Guard, at least for the most part. Maybe it depends on the lord you have that's leading the army, if they have a bonus for upkeep reduction or reload rate, stuff like that. But in general, so those are some kind of ideas of what some of these late-game characters look like for me, for their skill trees. For a lot of these, where's like a combat lord? Alistar is almost a combat lord. Caladriel. What about like Gilgallion? I don't even have that many good like high level non-legendary lords. Driellen, since she's a mage, I have her built into personal combat skills a lot. Like Rana, Valen, these are all low level here. Gilgallion, I thought he would be high level. Again, this one I didn't take. This one the AI took. I've given him the hard to hit for his own personal defense, just to like make him more survivable. But then I put points into the Bowmaster and Master Strategist. Then I could get Rally. Then I can get this favorable wins for, especially, well, and he has the Shadow Warriors again, right? So here again, this and this are extremely useful, make a big impact on an army that looks like this. Not that you should build an army like this. I talked about it already. I should cut some of these Shadow Warriors without a doubt. But I haven't done it yet, and I just haven't needed to. We're just pushing through and auto-resolving at this point, so it hasn't been that important. We talked about army composition. We talked about finances. So what's the big picture here, right? What's the next thing that we do? I mean, again, if you were to get to this point yourself, I mean, I did kind of talk about like next 10 turns, right? I want to push these armies on the southern flank a little further in, capture this Iron Peak province, and hold it. I mean, if there's a little enough resistance, I'm going to keep pushing through, right? Perhaps I'm even going to take the fight to Axwaddle, because you can see, like, this was effective, right? I had to fight a few decent armies early on in this, but, like, taking the fight over to here, like, I've only had one fight with a Black Ark army over here, and that was it. I haven't seen anything from the Dark Elves on my shores for a while, right? If you take the fight to them, and honestly, I think that I've been pushing them back so heavily that they've been more focused on trying to win this fight with the Lizardmen, right? They think that they have a better chance of winning in the south than they do against me in the north, so they just kind of give all this territory, and it's been going really badly for them. So yeah, I definitely, if I'm playing on the safe side, what's my like conservative, definite answer to what I think can be accomplished here? I'm going to capture the Iron Peak, right? Morathi, here's like your last ditch army, right? I should be able to take this out no problem, and who cares what I lose here, because I took it away from them already. I'll take out Morathi, take this province to myself. Yes, I will declare war on the Drowned. I mean, they have two really awkward territories at most, so who cares? I'm personally, maybe they have, looks like they gotta have one somewhere, but who cares? For Tyrion and Gilgallion, they're going to push through this little, valley here and then try to clean up as much of the northwest area as they can. In the meantime, after I have them clear this out, I'll try to hold the pass with this army here. And this is even kind of getting into 30 turn plan, right? Like, how do I close this game out? I have Tyrion mop up the Dark Elves here in the northwest. Especially because once that's done, I don't need to defend like most of this, right? Maybe I leave an army, I mean, not even up here, right? I can leave maybe one army around Slaver's Point in the Broken Lands. I can basically just have one army running around here gathering sea stuff. I'm probably leave another army at Averheim or Arnheim, because this is a relatively, like, this would be a great entry point for somebody to try to, it's just easily accessible, right? Maybe not the best entry point since it would be easy to cut off, but it's a very accessible spot for them. And then I have, once I finish that campaign here, once I feel I've sealed this off, I can just start pushing south with all four of those armies and kind of do whatever I want. Hexwaddle's eventually going to go to war with me, but I should be able to maintain good relations with the Order of Lore Masters that, frankly, I'm probably not even going to bother confederating them, because this would just be confusing to try to hold and manage. I have good relations with the Hunts Marshal's expedition. Once I clean up the Hexwaddle here and take over what's left of the Isthmus of Lustria, then I can even move over here and start, basically this is the last contested continent for me anyway. I suppose I'll probably end up at war with the Lizardmen once this fourth ritual completes, but I don't intend to fight Cetra, and I don't really care about this, right? I can putz around with those four armies here, send them south, and just keep everybody else at home. In fact, it might even be a better idea to pull an extra army or two home, because this is rough, right? Like, this is really rough. I want to make sure that wherever this is going to happen next, that I have people in place for it. But that's the rest of the plan. Again, even if I gave up ground here, we could go back 30 turns and I never make this invasion, and all I have to do is win this. Like, once Nagarond completes the final ritual, I just have to beat them in the final fight. And then, like, nothing else, none of this other stuff that I've done even matters as long as I beat them there. And then I complete it myself. I've basically just been taking this territory so I can increase my way fragment production so I can get to the final ritual faster. I always find that it's pretty slow. Like, the High Elves have really slow ritual progression, but really fast, like, territory acquisition and strength and development, right? It's easy to become strong as the High Elves and the Dark Elves. And you can see, I mean, I'm about to say that for the Dark Elves and the High Elves, it's hard to acquire ritual materials. That seems to be untrue for the Dark Elves, but don't forget that they have a bunch of bonuses. Well, like, the AI gets bonuses to that stuff. I mean, even the lizardmen seem to be having trouble with it, which honestly they shouldn't, but it's because they're losing to the Hunts Marshal's expedition. Otherwise, they'd have access to a lot better stuff. They'd be able to confederate some lizardmen down here and do better, but they suck. So, they suck this campaign anyway. So that's pretty much it, right? Like, I've just started the 4th ritual. I'm absolutely slaughtering the Dark Elves. I'm going to continue to do that and try to clean up the rest of their territory here, just to minimize the threat from them and to kind of contain this territory for myself. Once I control essentially 2 continents and what would be half of the game, again, all I have to do is just, like, hold my front lines down, burn another 20 turns, and plow through another 2 army spawns like this. Again, it would suck if I lose Tori Vortex. I'm actually fairly concerned that I might. However, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It matters a little bit. It would hurt to lose this, but that's why I'm moving these other armies back across, right? If I lose this, like, it's gonna hurt, but it's no longer gonna hurt that bad, and it just doesn't matter, right? Like, even these 2 territories, the High Vale and Salvation Isles, I haven't recovered them hardly at all, and you can see it really doesn't matter. It has not impacted my growth that much. So, with that being discussed, I think that's it, right? We do still have the one battle, like I talked about. There was one more battle here with a lot of cavalry, and I actually think I managed it a little bit better than I have in the past. So I think that would be a good fight to review, was this, little failed ambush battle on the cavalry. I do also plan on reviewing, then I'm gonna go through the rest of this turn, kind of see how this plays out. I'm definitely gonna attack this Skaven army. There's a good chance that I'll probably go after this Chaos army instead, because I can get support from the city. But I do think that, like, the 2 giants in here, it's gonna be this one, and then we're just gonna really, really hope that we can hold them down. Probably uncheck control large army so that I can fight with, like, my forces more concentrated against their, superior numbers, and hopefully just burn them down instead of getting overwhelmed entirely myself. If I do have to, like, I don't know what of these fights I will play out. I don't really want to spend the time figuring it out during this point in the video. So we will review those battles as well. I'll also show with the next ritual spawns, if I think that they're worth reviewing, I'll show, but frankly, it's going to be very similar to this, right? Like, we're going to get, like, another wave. I want to say the last wave might be some Chaos, some Skaven first round. The last ritual is 20 turns, and so the second wave, I want to say, is just going to be all Skaven, but we're just going to be seeing a lot of these same fights. I don't think we need to review every one of them. If you see me play it through once or twice, the strategy doesn't really change, especially if the army composition doesn't change, right? This is not the right army composition, which I've talked about, but so we'll review those battles, and then the last thing I want to say is that I will also review the final ritual battle, right? Most likely Nagarond is going to beat me there unless they get their ritual progress disrupted, like, twice, which is a very real possibility. That's part of the other reason you go and you take this stuff over, right? Just to, negate their chance of even being able to win the game. So that's hard to predict. I don't know if it'll succeed or fail or not. It depends on what the ritual picks for their main cities. But if I have to fight Nagarond, I'll play that out and show what it looks like kind of coming in. Well, either way, the final battle plays out the same. So to be frank, I actually will probably only show my final version of it, because when you play out the final ritual battle, you still come in on the offensive. You have to beat the army that's already there and oust them, and then you have to defend yourself against the rest of them. In fact, attacking during the ritual is actually not that bad because you'll get the support of all the other, like the other factions, the other ritual factions in the game that are still surviving. So in fact, if I need to fight the Dark Elves, the Skaven and the Lizardmen will also provide forces that will try to engage the Dark Elves. They're going to have some special magic abilities that I don't want to spoil if you don't know about them, but we should be able to overwhelm them 3-1 pretty easily. So, yeah, with that being said, we're going to move on and review the battles, and that's going to be a wrap for this final part of the guide. I've hoped that this is useful to people. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please, again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section. There's not really a lot to discuss in this late game area. A lot of the stuff might be more geared towards early game stuff that we've gone over, but I still look forward to the feedback. What do you think I should do differently on the next series? What do you think I can improve on? Am I taking too much time on some of these turns? By the time we get to turn 120, does anybody even care what I have to say about what we're going through? Or is this still useful to review? Let me know. We're going to move on to the battles. We'll do a little bit of... we won't really do any wrap-up after that because we just have to get to the final ritual battle and then we win the game. There's really nothing much else to discuss. We've reviewed it all, so let's jump into the battles. And again, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So yeah, let's check out the battles. Then we'll close things down, and we'll catch you on the next campaign. Alright, so here we have the first of those two ritual battles that I wanted to fight before the end of the turn. You can see, well, this is actually the second of the battles. We're going up against that Chaos Army. We took a look at it before, but it does have a couple of decent units. I mean, the Giant, not too crazy. Easy enough to focus down, but still could be a real threat to us. They got a lot of strong infantry. All these Chosen are going to be, your top tier Chaos infantry, and they got a lot of them. Even the Chaos Warriors with halberds, I mean, these are going to do pretty good, and I don't have a ton that can, counteract them, right? I mean, Silver and Guard, like we've got low tier infantry here, and they should have a decent bit of armor. Yeah, even the Chaos Warriors have a good bit of armor, right? Another big piece of the threat is these Hell Cannons, right? 420 range, homing missiles. I kind of wanted to get these Eagle Claw bolt throwers to shoot them, but with the troops that I get for reinforcements, we've got the Arcane Phoenix here. We'll have 2 eagles and a dragon reinforcing from the city, so we end up using those. Let's just kind of watch and see how it plays out. The other thing is, with running my Phoenix in here, if you put some of these kinds of units within range of the Hell Cannons, they'll just shoot at that instead. Right, so if I just keep running my Phoenix around, they'll keep shooting at that Phoenix. Here you see we get, a nice use of that Eataine Vortex spell. They're still kind of figuring out where to put their troops, and so they overlap them. Here you can kind of see you want to make sure to be running this around, right? Either run your unit in a circle. We'll see. You can see I kind of do a really sloppy, quick pathing of it, or just switch sides back and forth. You could see having it sit still, even though I'm not really that concerned about the damage. I'd rather have this get shot than my infantry. Oh, that's a fireball from the Lord. This still will take some damage. So you can see a couple of their troops are starting to kind of come forward. I'm just letting my bolt throwers do their thing. And, we get the Dragon Breath on these Hell Cannons, try to soften them up. I really don't want to dive my units in there until these Hell Cannons don't have protection. And I even kind of realize, hey, these Eagles, I'm not going to be able to safely dive them in. Let's just pull them back. I even have a Lore Master of Hoeth, so we can get them healed up. The Phoenix's Vortex spell is ready again, so I just kind of try to drop it on the Hell Cannons and get some more damage or kills on those troops. Meanwhile, this is the formation that I took. It's not the craziest great formation, so we've got these reinforcement white lines in the back. We've got the Lothern Sea Guards on the flank and the Dragon Princes. So this basically, like you can see, they had a couple of cavalry units right in the chariot there, which is a little bit of a concern to me, especially if that can get in the back line and start hitting my archers or my artillery. But by doing this, I've kind of walled it off, right? Even if they go toe-to-toe with my Dragon Princes, I don't need to use these for too much else. And so you see we've just kind of safely positioned ourselves up against the wall. Nothing really too special happens here. You know, I'm busy microing back at home, and so I get the dragons get hit a little bit more. I'm just trying to make sure the bolt throwers are shooting valuable targets, that I'm dropping heals on these eagles as much as I can. Where's Eltharion? Eltharion does have that apotheosis, the single target heal that I can use to try to get this great eagle back up. And so you can see finally we've destroyed one of the hell cannons. And even here, like, they just leave this one unit behind, and this is great, honestly, having it, like, leave one unit behind. It's perfect distraction. So there's not too much going on. I want to see when this hell cannon dies. Yeah, you can see they even somehow get, like, a big boost to health there. Not really sure what that's all about. But you can see we kind of keep poking it with those units. Meanwhile, they're starting to move in on our flanks. You can see this, like, this is why I've got this little wall of Lothern Sea Guards. I kind of adjusted a little bit, as well as the Dragon Princes, so that if they actually get hit, it works better. I have a few different units, like I grab a couple of the archers, have them focus fire on the giant, just to make sure that it's not a problem. And then it's pretty much the waiting game, right? Their units kind of move in. All we really do is we're just buying time for our archers to shoot them. Kind of reposition that weaker eagle just to get into the back. I've got a Flame Vortex spell from a unique item on Eltharion. I've got, you know, a noble up here, the Great Eagle, another noble from the garrison, and they don't even really try to come in on the Dragon Princes. You know, the cavalry just charges right into my spear lines, so I can just charge their cavalry in the back. In addition, you know, Chaos with their armored units, well, White Lines of Shrace aren't great. They're not going to, like, win a 1v1 against Chosen, but they're going to do some damage, and will at least do better damage than my spearmen will, right? The spearmen are just for holding the line. So you can see I take all those white lines and I try to push them up through my lines. It's a little bit messy here. We got the cavalry kind of microing back and forth, but you can see I really don't even have to manage the front lines too much, right? Just make sure none of my units slip away too hard like this noble. But just really getting in there, kind of having them take a lot of damage from the archers on the way in. Trying to use debuffs. I want to say I have that Celestial Mage. Yeah, and again, using the whatever the wind, the Curse of the Midnight Wind, I think it's called. The debuff that reduces their armor, right? Reduce their armor, take a lot of damage from the archers coming in, hit them, like, pin them in place with my spearmen, hit them with my White Lines of Shrace, and honestly, it doesn't take too much more, right? Like, now all we've got left is the Hell Cannons, which are unbreakable, which is why they don't retreat. This one even goes back to, you know, because I chased it off of this artillery unit, but I didn't destroy the artillery unit. So it lives, and in addition, so we have to run out there. Additionally, I kind of have the, you know, the Great Eagles, the Dragons, the Phoenix, the Dragon Princes, all try to run down some units, right? I know that this end turn is going to be really scary. I mean, this is only the second of 6 ritual armies that has the potential to attack me. So we really, you know, I spend some time running these units down. I have to finish wiping out that Hell Cannon in the back line. So I kind of split my units up and have them run down different stuff all over the place. But, so you could see, the terrain ended up being fairly favorable. I was able to, like, pack myself in a corner here, build some nice defensive walls. I mean, we took some damage, but honestly, it doesn't look that bad, all things considered, right? It also helps that we had kind of a 2 versus 1 advantage, and we're going to need a lot more of those. So that pretty much does it for this fight. We're just gonna end this replay here, and we're gonna move on to the next fight. So here's our next fight. You can see we're gonna have to do a siege battle, right? The one full strength Chaos army comes in and attacks, and has the other 2 Chaos armies as backup, right? They full send into my like Tor Yvresse here, and all I have is the garrison in Eltharion. We at least got a little bit of healing by doing casualty replenishment off of the last couple battles, but this one's going to be a slog. And as awesome as this place looks, like, it's a crazy good-looking terrain, it's hard, right? Like, here's my capture zone. There's an entry point here, 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 and here. So I have 5 potential entry points into this center zone. It's really vulnerable, and I haven't really fought at this site, at least not this particular siege battle, very often. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. When you're fighting something like this, you know, I generally don't want to put my units... like, I could have started a couple spearmen on the walls, but with their hell cannons, it would have just given them free targets to shoot at. I don't really, I mean, probably would have done I suppose the towers would have done some decent damage since I had, some of the upgrades in it. So maybe that would have been a good idea to leave a spearman or two. But honestly, I didn't want anything to be caught out of position, right? My bolt throwers with the upgrades have almost as much range as the hell cannons, and I kind of positioned them here hoping to snipe stuff, but they really just don't have great line of sight on too much from here. So I end up moving them to the middle. But so we'll just kind of get it going and see how it goes. I try to position my units up on the wall here so they can shoot forward. I've got a little stopgap in the center. And in general, with these kinds of battles, you almost want to let... part of the reason why you want to just camp out your capture point and fight from here is it makes them walk across the field. They're not going to lose a ton of vigor by walking out. But it takes time, right? And especially if you survive their first real offensive, the rest of their units start trickling in one by one as other units retreat, and so they generally do a fairly poor job of regrouping, so you're able to fight them, like kind of eliminate them one by one or piecemeal. So you see we get a couple of nice artillery shots off. I like it, but it doesn't. I end up having to reposition them. One thing I did notice though, my Phoenix is going to be able to take on this Fire Lord. And so even while taking a couple of shots potentially from that Hell Cannon, we're still able to whittle it down, take out their Lord, which is a big start, right? That gives them the leadership debuff. In the meantime, there's not really too much else to see. Yeah, you can see here I kind of realize, hey, those Hell Cannons aren't even moving. They're shooting at the Phoenix. I might as well just get my artillery in line because they're going to break through my front door. And so they do. I still am not sure what to do with all my heroes. Who's going to be in combat, who's going to be playing defensive. I move stuff around a lot during this fight, and you'll kind of see that. I don't even know that there's too much to really review here. It's basically just setup and execution, right? I end up taking out that Lord, and especially now that a bunch of these units have moved off from the Hell Cannons. Well, see, but these are already so far out, they're shooting at my Phoenix here that I decided to just pull the Phoenix back and try to heal it up a bit. They send in a pretty strong attack on the flank, so I end up moving Eltharion over to help. Cast, a buff on here to get the Silverin Guard up. Move the archers in position so that they can just fire directly on that stuff. Looks like we're going to have a similar problem over here on the west, so we kind of start lining up for that. And honestly, here in the middle, we don't actually have too much danger. So you can see I'm casting some heals on that Phoenix. And they're starting to move up. They really push on the flanks pretty heavily. But that's where, kind of casting spells and debuffs can come in. Hopefully I'll cast one over here. I did kind of... Yeah, I see a great opportunity to hit a ton of these units with the Vortex. And I'm pretty sure I actually drop a Comet on them, don't I? Meanwhile, Altharion's winning over here. The real tough part is to watch for stuff that ends up coming around the sides. Yeah, there's that Comet hit. We kind of missed it a little bit, but... Meanwhile, just keeping the Phoenix in safety. Shadow Warriors are actually within range to shoot stuff that's on the flanks, so that's kind of funny. And we basically just try to hold out like this, right? I believe I end up moving my Lore Master, yep, there they go right now, to the west, because this is where we have to fight, right? Is really the flanks become more important. I mean, we have artillery firing down this alley in the first place, kind of keeping everything pinned so they don't become too much of a problem. But seeing these armies kind of go out on the flank, I realize, hey, I'm probably going to need to contest that a little bit. We fought off that one wave, and so that one Chaos Warrior, or whatever this is, it is chosen. I mean, they come in, that infantry comes in, tries to attack. Meanwhile, I send this noble down here. I set a buff on them for increased melee attack and defense. I use the Foe Seeker for vigor and speed, and we send them right in. Pretty sure I send the Phoenix down to support that. Meanwhile, east flank is secured, at least temporarily. I also, at some point, realized, hey, there's two giants just kind of camping out here, right? I mean, at this point, we've eliminated most of the threats that end up coming in through the front, so I can have these bolt throwers single target fire on those giants. And yeah, in the meantime, these Hell Cannons just can't really figure out what to do or where to go. They have a tough time navigating the siege. We get another nice little bomb with the Phoenix, finish that off. They keep, and like I said, this is the point where really they start, we've survived that first big wave. Now they really start trickling units, right? And now I can kind of pick my targets piece by piece. Eltharion even kind of runs out here after those retreating units a little bit too far, and it doesn't matter. He's on a horse, he can get back quick. Have the Phoenix help out here on some of these tougher fights. Make sure the Noble can cover the backside and the flanks a little bit. And that's pretty much it. Like, this is how you can see at this point they're trickling in, right? And it's just a matter of survival. So, you know, we get another little attack here. Chaos Lord of, like, Death here. Starting to run low on ammunition for a couple of different units. But in the same way, it doesn't matter that much. You know, I mean, here we have a Lothern Sea Guard with shields. Like, they're still going to be able to take a defensive position and hold the line. Send the Phoenix out chasing after that Metal Lord. So now we've killed 2 of the 3 Lords that attacked us here. I think we got a Death Lord over here. I'm not sure if we actually killed that one or if it made its way out. Nope, it dies right here at the end. Gets chased down by the Noble. And now I kind of have a chance to send the Phoenix out to bash around the Hell Cannons, tank some of their fire. I mean, they don't even move them up. They don't even really bring them in. But, so you can see, again, we're just kind of getting piecemeal here. We've already focus fired down those giants. So let's jump ahead a little bit in the fight and see where it's at. Alright, so here you can see some more of their units have made it in. You know, they got a couple of cavalry units made it in the front gate. I mean, they're still taking pretty heavy fire from our artillery. West flank, pretty well held down. In fact, I ended up, because the Phoenix was just getting low on health, I ended up just running it back and forth to bait out the rest of the artillery shots from the Hell Cannon. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't paying enough attention, and they kind of slip around and get a flank here, but it really doesn't take me too much to contain it. Wow, I thought I reacted to this a lot sooner. Anyway, I mean, you can see it's still pretty steady, right? Like, units trickling in from the west. They keep trying to run up the middle, and they just get devastated by these artillery. But even up here, right, I have the Sea Guard turn around, shoot the trolls while I have the Silverin Guard run in. It's just a matter of repositioning, right? Even these archers here in the middle, I just have them run away at this point. Intercept with the Lord. The Chosen end up turning around and fighting the Phoenix anyway. We just reposition the Spearmen and the Archers here. There's also some kind of buff that's going on, and I wish I could select it here. But I see, like right there, it just popped. There's something that's slowly restoring my ammunition in this fight, and it must be something specific to, I suspect it's something specific to Tor Yvres. Maybe it's some kind of skill that Eltharion has. I'm honestly not sure. So yeah, this light archer unit that I had parked in the middle here was out of ammo, and it's been recovering ammo throughout this fight. So surprisingly enough, this place on the east is actually pretty easy to defend because of that. And here you can see, yeah, I mean, and this is where the fight ends, right? They do get this one little flank in from the back end, but we're able to deal with it pretty easily and shut it down. I mean, that's why I have this Noble floating in the back. Really, it's just a matter of making sure, you don't let anything through on the front flanks, right? I've just got a couple of spearmen. I keep bouncing my heroes back and forth on this outer flank. We've got a pack in the middle here, and yeah, these Silverin Guard have taken some damage, but they've held out for a long time, and being able to support the Bolt Claw throwers means that anything that does come up the middle takes a lot of damage. Just keep casting debuffs with the Mage on whatever group needs it the most. And here at this point, we really just have like a handful of unbreakable units that we need to go deal with. So with that being said, let's jump into the next replay and see how that battle goes. Alright, so this last battle, we have a Skaven, like a full-strength Skaven army in the field. This army, was full health, besieged my city over the end turn. So even after holding out on that siege, I still had to fight this army and didn't get recovery off of it. So make sure that you're taking the casualty replenishment bonus after pretty much every one of these fights, or you're not really going to make it through to the next turn. Well, essentially you just die by attrition, right? So I do get the reinforcements from the city, so this doesn't end up being too difficult of a battle, but I thought I'd kind of throw it in here. The other Skaven army goes into raid stance. I don't know why. Maybe they thought that this one would survive or something. I'm not really sure. But I thought that this one might be good just for showing some of my... I mean, this is not like a novel or ideal formation at all, But because I have a blend of garrison troops and army troops, I do want to make sure I put the garrison troops to use, kind of put them on the front lines, right? So even this dragon and the eagles coming in from the garrison, right, I want to send those deep to try to take out this Plague Claw catapult before it does too heavy of damage. I mean, you can see, obviously, I don't know that, yeah, you can see, I don't know that all of these gutter runners are chasing my stuff down, but I also kind of don't care. My eagles are too fast. My dragon takes a couple of shots here early on, but I just fly it to the corner first and then fly it to the back. It just splits their army up and gives me more time. Meanwhile, I take those white lines of Schrace and put them on the flanks here so I can run them forward. I have a couple of Lothern Sea Guards from the garrison that I also put on the front lines. We had a noble from their garrison that we put on the front lines. And I even have these Dragon Princes. Like, I kind of noticed, like, wow, they're really not paying attention on this flank. Like, we've got this Night Runners. I also end up bringing the dragon back because the two eagles get on top of this Plague Claw basically uncontested, and I recognize, hey, should be an easy way to take them down. We blast this Hell Pit Abomination. I grab a couple missile units, focus fire it. On the way in, my Bolt Claw Throwers are focus firing the Plague Monks, the Deathglow Bombardiers, and the Warp Fire Throwers, right? If I can take out some of their high damage melee unit, high damage ranged units, we even get like a nice little Dragon Fire snipe on them. We're chasing down these Night Runners, and their Lord wastes a Lightning Bolt on my Dragon Princes, and you can see, honestly, they get slaughtered. Like, this Skaven army is not on the same level as that Chaos army, where they actually have the armor that they need to survive against these missile attacks. You can see, they barely get in range, and I hit them with all of these garrison troops and just smash them to bits, right? Like, really it's the missile damage that they take on the way in that's the most devastating part. But I mean, this fight ends pretty quick, right? Like, they really hit me one time. I target down a couple of their stronger units, focus fire with missiles on that Hell Pit Abomination, get on top of their artillery, and that's it, right? Like, that's the fight. I'm not even paying attention to this white lines of Schrace. I let them run amok by accident, but it doesn't matter. Like, one and done. This fight's already over. Now, of course, that it helps a lot to have 2 versus 1 odds, but that is just a sample of, I don't know, like I said, not the most well-crafted or beautiful formation, but in a way it kind of shows that you don't need a perfect formation to win a fight like this, right? Especially if you just make good use of the troops that you have and recognize their purpose, especially with the garrison troops. Just me putting them out front helped, but having a ton of missile units against the Skaven and focus firing down their stronger missile units, I mean, this just wasn't that strong of an army, so it wasn't too hard to do. With that being said, what I'm actually going to do is just kind of the last thing that I want to do here. I want to jump into the turn before the end of the game, right? I'll show, how does this campaign turn out for me? How does it end up playing out? Like, what does it look like on the last turn before I engage in the ritual battle? So we'll get to see that turn. We'll get to see the final ritual battle, and then that'll be it for the guide. So the campaign will be complete. So let's jump ahead and we'll see what the last turn looks like.
The star crown reforged. But the crown alone is not enough. It must be born into the vortex, delivered to Caledor by a hero worthy of Safari. And yet the chittering Skaven lurk, defiling Ulthuan, awaiting the Horned One's arrival. The vortex must be reclaimed, or the world is doomed.
Ooh.
Treacherous Glacier Skaven assemble at the eye of the vortex, my lord. Their bid to summon the Horn Rat must fail. Attack and gain control of the vortex yourself.
So yeah, like I said, in order to finish the campaign, you do have to complete the final battle. You have one last quest battle you have to complete at the center of the island in order to finish the game. Now, You know, I think we've talked about so much during these campaigns. I don't really want to linger on this. You can see, if I pull up my army map, right, like, I've just kind of continued to do my thing, right? We wiped out the lizardmen pretty easily. We finished off the dark elves, like we said. Now just kind of pushing south. I mean, the last defenders actually confederated Hexwaddle and have just a, you know, scrambled territory here. Dark elves with a few just random little sites here and there. And we'll see if they attempt to start the ritual again, but I kind of doubt it. Probably a little bit of Skaven or something hanging out in here, but I mean, you can see we've got armies pretty scattered across the continent. Same deal over here. You know, a few turns ago, this was all lizardmen, and actually it has mostly been these chaos armies that are doing the work for us because the lizardmen just were not adequately prepared to defend against it. I mean, they got another 7 turns left on the ritual. Now, I kind of have Tyrion in a little bit of an awkward spot here because I didn't realize this until, you know, only a turn or two ago. So I didn't plan ahead for his positioning. Not that it really matters. I was going to take Talashlan, and this army moved south to here. I've been chasing him around. Blah blah. Basically, I mean, so if you noticed, you do have 5 turns before you need to complete the final battle. I just don't want to have him fight the battle, be severely weakened, and then maybe lose something. I also kind of decided I would give Tlaxlan to the Hunts Marshals expedition anyway, so I can kind of get him out of here. Hopefully this army should just be able to take Chakwa. This should be an easy auto-resolve. This was like an absolute trash. Yeah. I want to resolve it because we take that damage and it just doesn't matter. Especially if we were in pleasant climate, this army would be full strength next turn already, but it's going to take 2 turns, and I don't know, who cares? I can move it one turn and figure it out from there. But yeah, so with that being said, we're gonna take a look here at the final ritual battle, just so that you can see what that's like, so you can understand. I really don't think that it should be too much of a struggle. The only reason it would be a struggle is if you've refused to manually fight any battles up to this point. That's why I've recommended several times, you know, starting early, right? Fight out your first few battles with low tier troops that are easy to manage, right? Playing those out is a lot simpler. But to be honest, this battle isn't really too difficult, and you'll see why. We get some special abilities, and you get way more like artillery and missile unit ammunition in this fight, as well as winds of magic. So we're just going to kind of move into that. I'm basically just, now that I have this territory, all I have to do is move Tyrion south after the fight, and he'll be fine. So with that being said, let's jump into the final battle, and then we can get things wrapped up. Okay, yeah, so you can see here, obviously it looks pretty one-sided. I mean, we have to fight against everybody, right? We have to fight Skaven, Dark Elves, and the Lizardmen. We also have to fight this kind of the Grey Seers clan of, yeah, it's okay, of the Skaven. So like I said, we're gonna just kind of get right into it. It's really not too much to talk about in terms of their army, right? It's pretty pitiful force here for this initial fight, especially with what we're bringing to the battle. A little bit of a cutscene action here. Set the scene. Oh, we're ready.
Fight for your soul. Fight for your homeland. Althwan is defended.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the talking to be done. And here it is. Oh, and we actually do get to set up. So you can see, like, basically, to start this, you kind of want to get a little bit aggressive, right? You want to get in there and unseat them from their position pretty quickly. We do have some Skaven catapults to deal with. I could potentially, maybe I will actually, just to save my troops a little bit. I'm gonna grab all these and just start them back here outside the range. Maybe the catapults will hit our bolt throwers, but I'm hoping that it's going to focus our heroes instead. And we're just going to kind of move everybody up here. We're going to have these try to focus down some of these catapults. See if we can get in and get a little bit of damage done here. Of course, somehow, despite looking at the attack range of them before the fight started, we are still in it. Classic. Okay. Just fix that real quick. Actually, we'll have him just kind of get in there. Should be able to... I see, they're just pretty desperate for our actual infantry units. We'll just keep pulling them back here. Was that on the right target? Yeah, okay, it was. Just gonna toss that out there, see what happens. And then some good shots on there. I don't let the dragon take too many hits if we can help it. See if we can get this one a little bit off the ground here. So I can blast away. I don't even know if that spell I used worked at all, but... See, like, really, dude? How far do I have to pull these out? That's so annoying. Oh, Skaven. Oh, we can't hit them from there. This looks like a good target, though. Heal himself. Ooh, I don't have that much ammo, so I don't wanna, or that much magic right now. I mean, it doesn't matter too much, but we should be able to start moving these back in. Same with these. Yeah, catapult's fully routed. Noble actually taking some damage. Should be, like, they need to route, you know, any second now. In classic fashion, they just don't want to. What is going on? Okay, getting a little annoying, just, it's so clearly over. It's so painfully over, I don't know why they won't just give up, but, you know. Like, what is this? You really gonna shoot those guys? Oh, super weird. Do you mean that you absolutely took devastating losses? Yeah, this part can be kind of weird. Guess I'm still just underestimating the Skaven's willingness to reform ranks. Just, like, it's so, like, this. Like, how are they not fully retreating? There we go. Okay, finally. So, this is what I'm talking about, right? These are your special abilities. You have this, like, explosion that does a bunch of healing. You have this explosion that does a bunch of damage. And you basically just set yourself up and... Hello? And you shred them. It's kind of why I was trying to move everything in for a little while there. See if we can get them in place. And we're going to have to pull all these fools to a certain location so I can heal them up a little bit. But yeah, so you can see, like, right off the bat, we can just drop this on them, and it does massive damage. And that's pretty much the fight, right? Like, that's all there is to know. You gotta win that first little offensive, and then you fast forward, and you drop another giant bomb on them with magic, and that does devastating damage. And maybe once in a little while I'll look back at my units. I want to see, like... Definitely need to heal up. Let this noble take maybe a little bit more damage than I needed to. Yeah, so you can see that big jump of health right there on that unit. This is pretty much just how it goes. See if we can position them there. And try to spread those out a little bit. Maybe put that on the flank. You out front. You can stay out front. You can get back behind the lines a little bit. That's pretty much how it's done. Like you can see, this army is just ridiculously weakened, and I mean, we have near infinite ammo. We must have regenerating ammo or something in this fight. But yeah, you can see they're not even gonna make it here, right? Ooh. Here comes a couple of black dragons, but even like, look at that, like that was a black guard of Nagaron. That's what that special ability does, and this, like, that's pretty much it. Like, this is the fight. Obviously, I still have to play this out to actually finish the campaign, but there's not much more to it, right? Don't position your units poorly. Don't overextend. Make sure to cast heals on your own troopers. Hit big packs of enemies wherever you can. The more you do that, the more army losses you'll inflict. I don't know. Be careful. Like, this is a great choke point right here, but you do have to be kind of careful. A lot of the times, I mean, as you can see, they're moving some units up on the flanks. You got to be a little careful of that at times. Oof, and a nice blade wind from your boy Malekith. That really sucked. You can get blasted pretty hard by some of their spells still. Don't forget about that, you know. But, drop a comment on them there. See if we can nail these. Now, you'll see this isn't going to do as much damage. I mean, that still did pretty decent damage to those cavalry. But it's not quite the same. Is there anything else I can do here? Maybe I'll pop that down. Nice weak little spell there. I could probably be focus firing down some targets here. Looks like he's just going to retreat anyway. Whoops. I'll pull them back a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you can see they're already running pretty scared. I'm kind of surprised Malekith backed off. I don't know what these cavalry plan to do here, but if they want to walk around the side, let them. Actually, I gotta be careful about that. Like, I don't know what they're gonna try to do over there, but hey, you know, whatever. Okay, I should be a little bit more careful with my own flying units when I'm attacking theirs. Perhaps a wee bit reckless. Okay, so we can put him here. We definitely have to keep this noble out of the battle for a little while. Unfortunate. Sadly, he is not as strong as you would like him to be. But yeah, you can see once you've routed an enemy, the rest of the whole crew just collapses as well. Let me see if we can get some more heals on these guys. I'll put you right there. Our damage spell, these are just going to be pathetic skink units. Kind of missed with that spell, but obviously it doesn't really matter too much. Keep dropping these heal spells on me, and then yeah, again, it's fast forward time. So you're going to get into range. Get the damage spell. Looks like these are running in. Yeah, and then they get blasted and they freak out. This one still needs some heals. Definitely a bit of a slog of a fight too, though. But you can see here, especially with this, like, the Dark Elf one, honestly, is probably the hardest one to fight as well. Just because of that angle that they come in at, or they kind of have like a little bit of cover from this wall. A lot of the times they'll move a few units around the flank. Can't always get the best hits on them. I should have looked for a better overlap to drop that spell on here, but I'm sure we'll find some. Yeah, what is up with the health of this unit? Is it just from those missing models? Okay, weird. They must have gotten hit by something else there. Maybe they were getting shot at and I wasn't paying enough attention. See, these Temple Guard don't take as bad of damage. Their units are a little bit more spread out as opposed to like those skinks that really just get blasted by it. Drop that here. Still got pretty nice overlap here. Just try to soften them up as much as you can. Honestly, I'm debating going out and maybe just trying to poke down Mazdamundi as well. Because I know that he's going to come in and he's going to drop a couple spells on me and I'm not going to enjoy that. How far do I have to go out for that? Oh, not that far. Perfect. Oh, now big overlap with the Temple Guards right there. That's going to be really nice. Popping spells. Tyrion actually taking a bit of damage. I wonder if that's just him getting shot at from the back or what. Any others? We're just gonna dive in there regardless. Some good hits on Mazdamundi there. Get some damage buffs out. Get some debuffs out as well. Yeah, look at that banishment. That's what we're afraid of. We can just take out Mazdamundi here. That'd be sick. Probably give them the order to chill out for a second so I don't blast away my own stuff. Okay, good. So let's go here and here. I'm just trying to find the right units to heal up a little bit. Yeah, and so you can see now they're on like their last legs, right? we have just one more wave of weird stuff to deal with, and then it's over. Got that heal down. Get everybody back in a position. Heal bomb on these archers. Damage bomb. Any overlap? Not really. Ooh, storm vermin though. Great target. Just trying to... my heal's not ready yet anyway. Just trying to see if I can catch anybody with them. Okay, this army still somehow has healing left on them. Wow, yeah, they really did. This is pretty much it, again, right? I don't know that there's really too much more to say about it, or even that much more to show. You just keep casting these spells on your stuff. Look for overlaps on their approaching units. Okay, good. Do I have anything else? What's this one? See if we can get a heal blast on them. I don't think this will do much damage, but I'd love to damage... Oh, that did a lot, actually. Wow. Okay, good. Good start. Because as much as I can take out, like, the Warp Fire Throwers, Poison Wind Globadiers before they reach our lines, that'd be sweet. Is there anything... Yeah, there's nothing I can really, like, throw out there. You basically just have your damage spell, and that's it. That's the big one. Looks like they're moving a little faster now. Wow, even dodged that. Tried to cast it on the one flank to hit that harder, but my units maybe not the best formation. That's gonna whiff. Oh well. Really nice overlap in there. You can cast maybe a little bit of a vortex in there. Some debuffs out there. That should be it. Boom. Oh, it's not. Hello? They just haven't figured out that they lost yet, or? Yeah. Hooray! We did it. Yeah. Vortex battle. I don't know. Maybe it seems intimidating. The biggest thing is just use your blast spell every time it's off cooldown, as often as it's off cooldown. It just does so much damage. I mean, if you half health, you know, 2/3 of their army, 3/4 of their army before it even hits your lines, it almost doesn't matter what you have. You can also see that some damage is unavoidable. You got to be kind of careful about who you attack with, make sacrifices, move things around. But I don't even lose anything. I have a couple of troops at half battle here, or at half health here. That's pretty much the battle. So, that being said, campaign's complete. The game is won. Maybe I can bump it up off normal difficulty. Again, don't expect turn 150 to be your pace for your first successful campaign completion. Don't expect your map to look like my map did for your first successful campaign completion. Remember, you get waystone warps, whatever the fragments, I don't remember what they're called for the high elves, waystone pieces, something. You get those every turn, whether or not you're taking additional territory, whether or not you're moving or fighting or whatever. So you will get there eventually, and you don't need to conquer half the world like I did. I just do that because, you know, that's fun for me. I don't necessarily like to sit in place and hit end turn. I like to see how far I can get. Yeah, the final battle is honestly not that difficult. The biggest thing is taking over the front lines quick and understanding that as soon as you take that first fight and win it, you have to reposition yourself, you know, in anticipation of the following few waves. So you noticed I moved my infantry and my artillery in before I had fully routed that Skaven army, because I wanted them to be traveling to get into position so that they'd actually be able to fight when stuff showed up, instead of still kind of repositioning. But yeah, I mean, you have that heal spell and damage spell. Those have unlimited uses. You just have to wait for the cooldown. You have like either missile regeneration or just like a really high limit on it. It seems like you have regeneration of missile ammunition and a pretty high winds of magic. You could see at the end there I was starting to run low, but I was also throwing out a lot of overcast spells on like my heals and my debuffs. So yeah, with that being said, that is the end of this campaign, and therefore the end of this video series for this particular faction and this particular campaign. I appreciate you all watching. If you even bothered to make it this far, you are an amazing person, and I thank you for that. Again, comments, feedback, anything appreciated in the comments below. What I should do for the next campaign, what I should do or should skip on the next guide video, anything like that. Just really, really appreciate anybody who even looks at this video and takes 2 seconds out of their, well, you know, or 2.5 hours out of their day to give it a review, anything like that. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to stop by my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/itsme HawkeyeG. If you want to see more, just let me know. Thanks again. Have a good one.